Okay, good evening and welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, October 2015. If you'd all just stand, please, for an invocation and a moment of silence for Chief Fedmore's father who just passed away.
Almighty God, we humbly come before you, acknowledging your sovereignty over all things. We thank you for your presence in this room. We also thank you for your blessings on our community. Father, as we consider the task of governance within our community, we ask you to guide our thoughts and hearts. And Lord, we ask that you would grant to each of us wisdom, discernment, and understanding. And as always, Father, each of us praise to you in the manner that we were taught. Now we'll have a moment of silence for Donald W. Cudmore, who's just passed away and was also a Korean War Air Force veteran. Moment of silence, please.
Thank you. Stu, if you'd lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes. All right. Good evening, everyone. We have a full house here, and it's usually there's something bad we've done, or some business that we have to take care of this evening. So, I think the first, is there someone here from the Knights of Columbus? John Pecos? John, please come on up. I know this was a last minute request, and we'll get you out of here real quick. Have a seat, please. For the record, if you would just state your name and address, John.
John Takis, 40 Spofford Street, Georgetown.
Great. So, John, this is the annual drive you have, and you can explain it to the public and to us what you're looking for.
Yes, I've been coming, the Knights of Columbus, I've been representing them for the last few years for the board, asking permission to be able to use the square to raise money for the annual Tootsie Roll Drive we do. It's always generally Columbus Day weekend. So we're going to, hopefully, if I get approval, I'll get approval from the police department to have, try to raise funds for a charitable event for handicapped children throughout the state and our town. Also for need for prosthetic devices, medical devices, wheelchair, ramps, glasses and things of that nature. All the money we raise goes directly to that fund. Nothing comes to our council per se. It's distributed through the state. So that's how the allotment of funds will, on need is dispersed.
Gotcha.
And I've been coming the last 6-7 years we've been doing it, and so we've come every year to gain permission.
Great. So, John, let me ask you. So the dates right now, it's Columbus Day weekend. Is it Saturday, Sunday, Monday?
No, we'll just do it the one day, from 8 to 12.
Which day?
Saturday.
Saturday.
To Saturday. So
Saturday the 11th, 8 to 12. Okay. Guys have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve a request for the Knights of Columbus to solicit proceeds for their fund on Saturday, September 11th, from the hours of 8 a.m. to noon.
Second.
what was the date?
Saturday, 11th. October 11th.
Is there any motion on the floor? Any further discussion on this? So the only thing we need to make sure is just all the permits and paperwork is all completed, right? Because I know this is a week before.
Yeah.
And lastly, there's been some issues out on the road in other parts of the community, other parts of the country, rather, with safety.
Yeah,
So
well,
just be careful out there.
yes, we have signs and have cones, and there's no children involved or anything like that.
No, I'm more worried about you guys than I am anyone
Right.
driving it.
Right.
Stuff. All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 No opposed? Okay, John.
All right, thank you for letting me address this early. Thank you.
John, thanks for coming in, and good luck.
Okay, thank you.
Gotcha. Okay, so we have some minutes that we need to get signed and approved for 7/27. Anyone ready to make a motion to approve those minutes?
Mr.
Chair, I'll move to approve the minutes from July 27, 15 as presented.
Second. Okay, we have a motion, second. Is there any discussion? No discussion being heard? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, any carries. Motion carries. We have some correspondence here, which I'll get through. Some of this we'll be going through a little bit later in our agenda this evening. Let's see, first, we have a letter from our town clerk letting us know that Elizabeth Davidson is resigning from the Georgetown Housing Authority, effective immediately. And so Elizabeth, you've served for 11 years on the board, so it's more than I'm willing to do on this board. But thank you very much for your service. So we'll be discussing this a little bit later tonight. We also have a communication from our town planner regarding the zoning bylaw, Article 6 on groundwater protection district. We'll have this in the office if anyone wants to review this. It's a proposed amendment to update the map delineation of aquifers and recharge areas. Sounds really exciting, but if you're interested, it's at Town Hall. I know it needs to be done. We got a letter also from Minda Fowler requesting for an appointment to the Board of Registrars, which is for the Republican Party. So we'll discuss that a little bit further this evening. And we got a notice from Hank Henry Wolf, who is interested in also joining the Republican part of the registrars. Again, we'll talk about that. And we got a draft schedule for our CPC meetings. I know there's going to be a few requests on them, but this is for getting us to our annual town meeting in May. And gentlemen, you all have a copy in front of us, so this should be helpful. If there's anyone out there that would like to get a copy of the CPC process, with the projects on the warrant for our town meeting coming up, it'll be in our office.
I could just look at that, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
I dropped that off, maybe later we can discuss it. I talked with Janet earlier. I was more interested in letting the board know our schedule, so that if there's anything when it comes to the Springtown meeting time, I want to make sure that we're on track with everything as we're trying to set better procedures there.
All right, Gary, we'll
Discuss that later.
We will pick that up after. Gotcha. Thank you. Okay, so in terms of old business here tonight, we have a joint meeting scheduled with our school committee. So why don't we have our school committee members please come grab some seats, come on up and make yourself comfortable.
Good evening.
Good evening, Barbie. If you haven't opened, you want to open your meeting?
Sure. I'd like to call the meeting of the Georgetown School Committee to order.
Terrific. All right.
So the reason we are here is to jointly appoint a new school committee member. What you had asked at the last meeting was for the school committee in open session to not have a formal vote, but actually come forward with a recommendation
Right.
to the Board of Selectmen.
Yep.
So at the last meeting, we did have a very productive meeting. Again, the fact that we have 3 willing participants, great resumes, we were very happy with that.
Okay.
I also just want to say too, with the recommendation, the 2 people that we are not recommending, I feel confident that they will continue to be interested in town government. So I'm happy about that. So we are officially recommending Cheryl LeChandreau to the Board of Selectmen.
Great. What was the vote?
3-1.
3-1? All right, well, I'm gonna, first of all, thank you for going through
And
the
again,
process.
not a formal vote.
Yep, no, thank you for going through the process. That helps us just get a sense of your thoughts. It's your committee. And I'd like to just first open this up to our board here to ask any questions they may have of you and why the recommendation was as such. Gentlemen, any questions?
Just one. refresh my memory of who got the one vote.
Mr. Hinchliffe voted for both Sheila Ruth and Mr. Don Valentine.
Oh. Can he have more than one vote?
Well, again, it wasn't a formal vote.
I understand.
So that's what, that was his recommendation. And the other 3 individuals present went with Ms. Lashendra.
Okay, so you did vote
Okay.
individually, that's how you did it. Gotcha. Before I ask any questions, gentlemen, do you have any questions? No? Just help me understand the thought process of the majority of why Ms. Lashendra was selected, based on your feedback as a board.
Sure. Would you like to speak?
Sure. I thought that, first of all, Cheryl's very highly regarded in the community. She had been in the Georgetown school system, so she knows the curriculum. She's very well educated about it, and I think that she could offer a lot to the school committee. And not just because she was a teacher, but because of everything that she knows. She's a wealth of information. That would just be an added bonus for the school committee.
Huh? Is there any other
And
comments?
I would just like to say, you know, I really am very grateful for the other 2 candidates who stepped up. I mean, this is a volunteer board, and we depend on people who, you know, are willing to serve. And either one of them, I feel, would be, you know, they're well qualified. But I really, you know, I know Cheryl Lashendra from, and many people in this community do, as a person who will go above and beyond and deliver. I mean, you know, many people came to speak at the meeting on her behalf, and, you know, people just raised just one small example is, you know, I believe every year before the school year, she has a party, a get-together with all of the class, all of the children in the class and the families. She invites them to her home, and they stay, and she has it, you know, there's a curriculum kind of, she knows what they're doing, it's all organized activities, it's wonderful. And then at the end of the year, she concludes it by inviting everybody to the beach, as a group, as a class. And again, she has activities for everybody planned, and she doesn't need to do this. I don't know of any other teacher who does this, but it's community building. And that's really, you know, we value that here in the school committee. And I just, you know, I know that she knows this town, Georgetown, for who we are, both as a citizen, you know, living here, and as somebody who's very familiar with our school district and our curriculums, as you said. And, you know, I know that she cares about this community very, very much, so. That's why I'm supporting her, but I'm grateful for the other 2 candidates. Because if we didn't have Cheryl, you know, they would be a godsend to us. It's just that we do have Cheryl. And so, knowing that, I'm supporting Cheryl.
Well, your extra efforts to help us with the vote on our side is much appreciated. I can tell you that leaving that meeting we had here a couple of weeks ago, I walked away personally saying all 3 could probably do a really good job. The 2 individuals, Cheryl and Don, that were here, I would have happily, and still would tonight, vote for either one, because I know they would both do a good job. But I want to make sure that this is a comfort for you to fit the requirements that you guys are looking for. And you guys have certainly done that. So, anything else before we? Okay, so so I'm clear on this, Mike. We have to get a nomination and at least 5 votes for a candidate?
That's correct.
Okay. So if someone could make a motion for a candidate, and we'll see if there's enough votes.
Does that nomination come from our board or either? It's a joint meeting, so it'd be either.
Yeah.
You can also put you can have multiple names in nomination.
Yep.
So I can make a motion?
Yes, of course.
I would like to make a motion that that our joint committees together nominate Cheryl Lashendra for the open position of the school committee.
What's the end date on that? June 30th? Right, it's an open position, or is it a year?
No, it's till the next election.
Till May.
I have it.
2016.
Isn't it June?
2016.
May 9th, 2016.
Position to end May 8th, 2016.
Great. Do I have a second on the motion?
I second.
Okay, so we have one nomination. Are there any other nominations?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Sheila Ruth
Okay.
to the school committee
Determine,
for the term to expire May 8th, 2016.
great, we have a nomination for Sheila Ruth. Are there any seconds on that?
On procedure, I thought on voting, do we need a second?
We need a second for the nomination, right?
We haven't had seconds on nominations.
Oh.
Anybody can nominate.
Okay. There we go then. Are there any other nominations?
Well, you know what, in the interest of having all three, because they all three came and put the time in, so then I would nominate Mr. Valentine, Donald Valentine, for the term to expire 5/9.
Okay. All right, so we have nominations for all three candidates, and we need to do a vote on, I'll do it in the order that they came. All those in favor of,
Any discussion on the nominations, or is that over?
I'm open if you guys still want to discuss it, absolutely. I want to make sure they get everything out the door. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say that sometimes voting, sometimes when you vote negatively against for someone, which may have to be done here tonight, it's a tough thing to do. And, but I personally have in the past made that tough decision and not gone along with the person who's in front of us, because one of the things I believe is in getting good diversity on the boards. And I think that's part of why the decision is a joint decision, because it helps us in leading perhaps into that diversity. And so I thank you for your recommendation, but I won't be following it, just to.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of Cheryl Lashendro for the school committee opening, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Thought it was a roll call vote, no?
One, two,
Aye.
3, 4, 5, 6. You got this, Janet? Okay. 6. All of those in favor of Sheila Ruth for the school committee opening, say aye. And raise your hand. And all those in favor of Don Valentine for the school committee, raise your hand, say aye. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Congratulations, Ms. Lashendro, and thank you, Mr. Valentine and Ms. Ruth, for your consideration. I hope you don't go too far quickly, because I have a lot of opportunity I think you could contribute to the town with. So, thank you very much, and Barbie for your committee's efforts as well. Gentlemen, thank you on our
Thank
side
you.
too.
Thank you.
All right,
We adjourn the meeting?
you can adjourn your meeting.
Okay, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn the school committee meeting. Great. All in favor? Aye. Great. Enjoy
All
the
right.
night. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, we'll just give them a minute to clear out.
You're out. You sound happy about that, Bill.
Well, listen, I know the drill. Stay for your business, and it's time to go home and watch us on TV, right?
Entertainment television. Yeah.
We're just doing some housekeeping here for a moment on those on television. Hang on one sec.
Please, you either hot or freezing in this place.
Okay, so our next order of business is a joint meeting with the Georgetown Housing Authority to fill an unexpired term. So if those on the Housing Committee would please join. Grab a chair and make yourselves comfortable. All right, good evening. So if you guys wouldn't mind, introduce yourselves. Not everyone in town gets to see you guys often in this capacity, so that would be helpful in your address.
Diane Drynan, Executive Director.
Great.
Frank Harper, 39 Hamilton Terrace.
Excellent.
David Shower, 121 North Street.
Great.
Juliet Reck, 2 Jefferson Court.
All right. All right, so welcome this evening, guys. Let's see if we can help you and help us all out here tonight. So, so Diane, what's going on? I mean, I understand that there's been a resignation.
Yes, and an
we wanna
unexpired term.
An unexpired term, right?
And we have somebody who's come forward to fill that position. He's actually been with the Tenant Association president since 2011. He's been on the Tenant Association committee since 2010. He moved in Georgetown about 10 years ago, and he's been a wonderful tenant, and he's been really good to, get to keep the groups together, and he's willing to fill the unexpired term until May 8th.
Okay. And so the recommendation from your board, did you have an internal vote?
And that would be to appoint Phil Cardoza to the unexpired term left by when Betty Davidson left.
Great. And when does the unexpired term end?
May 8th.
May 8th. Okay. 2016. All right. Great. So, gentlemen, on our side here, I'll open up for you guys if you have any questions to Diane and the committee.
Are there any other residents of Trussell Way that are represented on the board?
No, not at this point. No, I think that's why it'll be a plus for this board to have a tenant. Down the road, there might be another one, but not right now.
Did they formally call the
Yeah,
board
I'm
to order?
sorry. Did you,
Oh.
if you would call your board to order before we continue.
I'd like to call this board to order.
All right. Duly said.
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of quick
Yeah.
procedural issues. So there will be a opening at the next election. So this person, Phil will just stay until then. Do you know if he plans on running for the remainder of that particular seat?
He does.
Okay. And that would give you 5 members on the board if Phil comes in?
No, that'll
No.
give us 4.
4.
We're still waiting for a governor appointee.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Well,
been,
that's
it's been 4
unfortunate.
years, it's been almost 4 years since the governor has appointed anybody statewide.
You're kidding?
No.
Okay. That's a statewide thing, then?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I mean, I haven't served for 6 months in an unexpired term. I think it is important to have somebody that's actually living at Trussell Way. I think that really would add some more diversity to your board and some more input, Not that that person carries has any more authority than any other, trustee, but I think it's good and it's healthy, so.
Right, I would concur with that. It's always good to have the tenants represented.
Since this is an open meeting, gentlemen, do you have any more questions for the committee? Gary?
I just did to the other appointed by the governor. Is that because of a lack of anybody applying, or they've just decided not to do that?
I'm not getting a reasonable explanation for that. There have been several people who have put their hat in the ring, and we get no response. And I know I thought maybe before because, he knew he was leaving, but I can't explain why it's happening now.
Have any letters been sent on behalf of the boards, you know?
On behalf of the people who are interested, yes.
Right.
And I've called to follow up and.
But it's not just our
Mm-mm.
community. Could it be, I know there was talk, well, governor wanted to do a regional housing authorities versus individual ones. Could it be because of that?
No, because even a regional housing authority will have separate housing authority boards for each town.
Okay. Got it. All right. Thank you.
So, I want to open up to anyone in the audience that might have any comments or questions to help us as well, 'cause since we haven't talked about this before. Is there anyone who has any comments out there? Questions? Would you state your name and address for the record?
My name is Philip Cardoza, and I'm at 10A Long Lane in Georgetown, Housing Authority. I just want to express myself as that I'm the president of the Georgetown Tenant Association, okay? And I'm also on the Mass Union Housing Authority as well. I just wanted to let you know that who I was and what I bring to the table, okay? I'm also on EHCD committees on renewing things for housing authority.
Yep.
In the state. So that's who I am. That's what I bring to the table.
All right. Well, Phil, thank you for stepping up. It sounds like you always give the job to the busiest person, and it sounds like you have a few other things keeping you busy out there. Okay, well then, if we can, if someone is willing to make a nomination for Phil Cardoza.
I'd like to nominate Phil Cardoza for the other Board of Director on Housing Authority
And that's to end on May 8th, 2016.
on May 8th.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Okay. All those in favor of voting for Phil Cardoza on the Georgetown Housing Authority unexpired term for May 8th, to expire on May 8th, 2016, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Ooh,
Any opposed? You got the job.
Thank you.
we just.
All right.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
That was fast. You can't do that, Frank.
I'm tempted
Right,
to
that
do it
was good.
myself as well.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Good luck, Phil.
Okay, I lost my town administrator. Let's see. Let's do this, since our new fire chief is here. Fire Chief Mitchell, please come up. Let's introduce you to the town once again.
Good evening. Good, how are you?
Chief, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
You made it through your first day.
Yep, I'll be back
You're still
tomorrow.
here.
I'm still here, I'll be back tomorrow.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I've got someone following you tonight.
Is there
just to make
a
sure.
rollover this morning on 95?
Yes, I heard it on the radio coming into work, so, but by the time I got in, they were just about clearing, so it was well taken care of.
All right. Well, again, welcome, and
Thank you.
we are so excited to have you here and look forward to working with you.
I'm excited to be here and looking to move forward.
Okay, so I have a few appointments. So in addition to being a fire chief, we have a few other just little hobbies for you down here.
Okay.
So it looks like there are a number of appointments here, including as Emergency Management Assistant Director, FEMA Assistant Director, Hazardous Materials Coordinator, Forest Warden, Hazard Mitigation Planning Committee, Statewide Anti-Terrorism Unified Response Network. So we didn't tell you any of this before you signed the contract, just so you know. But if I get a motion from someone to appoint Chief Mitchell to those committees with an expiration on June 30th, 2016, that would be great.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we appoint Fire Chief Fred A. Mitchell Jr. to the Emergency Management Assistant Director, FEMA Assistant Director, Hazardous Materials Coordinator, Forest Warden, Hazard Mitigation Planning Committee, Statewide Anti-Terrorism Unified Response Network, all of those with a term to expire June 30th, 2016.
I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Again, I look forward to working with you folks and looking to move forward, so.
We'll let you get acclimated, and I'll be in touch with you.
Okay,
All
yeah,
right?
same here. Thank you.
All right,
Take care.
guys.
You're welcome.
All right.
Good to see you.
Good
Welcome.
to see you. Thank you.
Okay, we have another appointment here to reappoint Tim Garrity to the Affordable Housing Task Force. Anyone want to make that motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we appoint Tim Garrity to the Affordable Housing Task Force with a term to expire June 30th, 2018.
Second.
Okay, we have a second on the motion.
Little discussion, Mr. Chairman, if I might. The problem is we're down to 2 members and they can't meet, so
Right.
Tim is also on the Affordable Housing Trust. He's actually chairman of the trust, so he's gonna serve on both committees until we can find somebody to plug in there. So we can have a quorum and we've been having joint meetings all along with the task force and the trust, so.
So this is a temporary?
Kinda,
appointment?
yeah, until we get somebody else,
Yeah.
Tim will probably step down.
Gotcha, okay.
We don't need a letter or anything?
No, we spoke, it's coming from, we actually took a vote at our meeting,
That I saw, yeah.
so.
Okay, any further discussion?
I thought you only had 2, you should be voting.
No, we had the trust.
Oh, okay, that's the other one.
Made a
I know,
recommendation.
we get them mixed
Yeah,
up.
there's two committees there.
Okay,
so.
thank you.
I know, people can write emails about affordable housing committee. I'm like, which one?
Which one?
All right. All right, so all those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right, Tim, I know you're watching. Thank you.
Thank
I
you, sir.
appreciate it.
That on.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay.
Did a term to expire, was it?
Yes, it was, I'm sorry, 6/30/2018. So let me amend the motion, just so we're clear on that.
I thought that's
No,
what
I did. I
heard.
said it.
You did say it?
You said it.
But I just didn't get it.
Okay.
Uh,
Don't worry, I'm losing my mind too.
Vote.
Okay, so let's take the next order of business here. We've got an agenda item here to talk about a noise issue with a neighbor from Mr. Mike McGann. Is Mr. McGann here? Mike, please come up and have a seat. If there's anyone else joining you here as well? Or that,
Same neighbor.
Same neighbor.
Another abutter.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
great.
so it's Michael Paglia, One
Oh,
Patches
okay.
Lane.
Michael Paglia, 1 Patches Lane, and if you would give us your address for the record?
Michael McGann, 25 Tenney Street.
Okay. All right, so, our board has had an opportunity so we're just, for us, this is the first time it's bubbled up to us. I will tell you, I've read through, and I've talked to our town administrator, and it sounds like, we kinda, as a town and a community, have our hands tied. I would like to, for the public, to share your, situation, so everyone is aware, and give a little color to the board outside of what the emails that you sent, were, so.
Wanna go
Why don't
first,
you
Mike,
share
Sure.
with us what's going on?
I've been at 25 Tenney Street for now, I think, 19 years. Living in Georgetown has been wonderful. Approximately 2 years ago, and I cannot be held to that time frame, the property at 274 East Main Street was sold. As soon as the property was sold, they started construction there, which is not my intent to question what they're doing. The man who bought the property is a contractor, professional earth moving contractor licensed in Massachusetts. He has been working, not every Sunday, but a considerable amount of Sundays till Mike has a video, 8 p.m. at night with an excavator ripping up ledge and rock. Unacceptable. This has been going on now for a year and a half, 7 days a week, not every day of the week. Holidays, evenings. I don't know if you people are familiar with what it sounds like to listen to an excavator ripping up ledge. It's not pleasant. The backup alarms that he is required to have by law range from 97 to 112 decibels. He is required to have them. Every time the machine moves back and forth, that alarm goes off. I have seen up to 7 pieces of heavy equipment at one time being used on the property. I've confronted him twice, asking, what are the hours at 7 o'clock at night? Why am I listening to this? Both times that I've talked to him, I've been rebuffed. His answer to me was, I'm doing this job as a homeowner, I can do what I want. There are no noise ordinances in Georgetown. I said, apparently you did your homework because you knew you could not do this in West Newbury, Oxford, Topsfield, or any other surrounding. He acknowledged the fact that he knew that before he came here. It's very frustrating. The level of frustration on a Sunday morning rises exponentially when you start listing the backup alarms and ledge being torn up and knowing that it's going to continue into the night. My request to this gentleman was very simple. I would like a little common courtesy and consideration for the neighbors. I am not trying to alter the scope of your work. It's your property. There is something known as common courtesy. Unfortunately, he's exploiting the loopholes that we have in Georgetown, seeing that there are no noise ordinances in place. He knows that, and he's going to carry on. If you can see it on Google Earth. I won't go on his property. He's asked me not to go on. I'm not going to trespass. This job site is never ending. This is not a homeowner's project. There are mountains of rock, dirt, debris, stumps that have not been moved since this began. There is no end in sight. It's gotten to a level of frustration where the boards have been great. I've talked to the health department. I've talked to the building inspector. This letter I wrote last year concerning my question about the noise. It's been going on a year and a half. This was June 9th, 2014. If you'd like to see that, I wrote to the building inspector concerning. The condition has continued unabated since then. I listened to him Labor Day and 3 consecutive Sundays. As a resident, I don't see why I would have to leave my house on a Sunday because the noise is driving me crazy. I don't think it's a fair situation at all. I don't think I would invite anyone here to my yard on a Sunday or at night to listen to this work being done, knowing by looking at the condition of the site, it's going to be going on for quite a while. It's gotten to a point where I don't see any regard for the people, the community being shown to us at all. And not the town has been great. Their hands are tied. He's found these loopholes, he's exploited them. Now I'm looking for an answer. Are there any answers, or is this something we're going to be subject to? Now, I was told by this Mr. Schuler that he is just putting one house up, his retirement house. That was it. That was his words to me. I'm putting one house up. I don't know, I don't want to misconstrue any facts, but is there plans for a subdivision? I don't want to misconstrue that. Did you mention there were plans for a subdivision in one of our discussions?
I did, when I spoke with you on the phone, I did mention a subdivision, but it happens to be on the other side of the street. It's not that one.
Okay. Like I say, I don't want to misconstrue anything. But this just looks like it's going to be a never-ending project with no regard for the neighbors or the community.
So before we get into questions, Mr. Packard, do you have anything to add?
Same situation, I'm closer, so it's louder. And, you know, this is from the porch, or, you know, early morning recently also. There's a big barn on the property, so not sure the zoning laws and if you can run a business out of there. But, you know, if I call my wife after being at work early in the morning and the question comes, hey, was there noise? Yeah, you know, just moving things around, 6 o'clock or 6:30 in the morning, then it gets quiet. and then it gets busy in the afternoon and doing work with the skid steer. So something happening early in the morning as well, and I'm not sure if there's a new business and there's been an opportunity to set up a business on that property, which I'm not the one to say. But I think it's just a question if this is going to be consistent. And then I don't know about any developments, but what's happened in the past has happened, and hopefully it gets better. There's a foundation and they're starting to build, so hopefully this is coming to fruition and completion. But words of putting roads through and connecting driveways, I mean, the original intent when we had the notice for butters, and there's about 16 of us that abut that property, I mean, it was for a driveway and to repurpose and redistribute the wetlands, and that was it. And, you know, I requested the plans, and there's nothing about the time or the excavation and walls and things of that nature. So it's really the future as well. And if something like this, again, not preventing a homeowner from renting a skid steer on a Sunday and doing yard work, but consistent, persistent noise is just something, again, became very versed in the bylaws, and it's very clear that there's nothing there. So I appreciate the, you know, the board's consideration and just thought to this and how we can address it as a community and thinking forward.
Gentlemen, thanks for the testimony. If there's any questions, Gary, you had a question that you wanted to ask?
It was, you know, I had the agenda since Thursday, but I wasn't aware of the address on East Main. So I'm trying to picture the property. Is this the house that's up the hill and they've torn down a barn? After the big barn with a couple of sheds?
Correct.
There's
Correct.
a house on the hill.
Correct.
That's
There's no house there currently. There's a new barn there. So you
You've
go
been building
by.
a barn,
Yeah, the red barn house and then the house next to it.
Okay,
They've been
so
there for a
that's-
while.
that's-
It's the one next to it. So it's actually Mr. Thompson, sorry. He owned all of that area where we are right now, and then he subdivided it a long time ago. So I have the original plans, quite beautiful actually. And he subdivided. And it's actually, when I called the building inspector when the land was being sold, he was like, you know, Mr. Thompson's very much, he's been in Georgetown for many years. He would never sell it to someone that was going to develop the land or rip it apart. So, you know, which is, you know, again, not preventing someone from working their landing and doing what they're supposed to. It's just the Sunday work. It's really comes down to the noise on the Sunday, the early morning times and things like that.
Okay, gotcha.
No.
I think we may have, David just showed me a photo.
Yeah, the
I
Google
don't
Earth, I get
know,
the Google Earth.
Mike, where you've been, but I mean, there may be like an erosion control bylaw that's on the books. Do you know if anybody's looked at that? And there's also, that could be in a watershed resource district.
So it's within the buffer. He's quite, you know, clear of the demarcation. He's had the Conservation Commission there to mark off the buffer zones, because I abut all of the wetlands as well, but,
Yeah, so Gary, and before you guys ask questions on that, Mike, why don't you give a list of what's been done on our side to see if there was a way to assist the abutters in remedying this?
Well, certainly. Mr. McGann stated correctly that he has been in touch with every department in the town, from the police to the Board of Health, conservation, building, everybody. And I think our staff has been very responsive. I know just recently there was a potential issue of oil leaks out of the heavy machinery. The fire department went up to check for a hazmat spill. I believe Mr. McGann reported to the state DEP, and the DEP sent the Conservation Commission a notice, and the conservation agent went up and inspected the site. There are no water resources that are being violated. There are no building codes that are being violated. The only possible, we just don't have anything for residential disturbances and noise. The only thing about construction is covered in the bylaws under the subdivision regulations. This is not a subdivision. Construction equipment can't start before 7. And I don't know the whole, but it would have been covered if it was a subdivision. I had a further discussion with the the building inspector and code enforcement officer, and like Mr. McGann stated, other towns do have noise ordinances. They're extremely difficult to enforce. We have to have the right type of equipment, decibel meters, and we have to be there when the noise is being made. So to get the building inspector there on a Sunday morning would be difficult. Unless you made the police, and I'm sure Don doesn't want to hear this, enforce that regulation as a nuisance law. I don't know. It's generally a code enforcement, but that's, as far as the staff is concerned, that is about the only way to, you know, limit this. You're still not going to prevent it.
And that's the last thing we want to do, is use the police time to investigate things like this. They have more important things to do, so that's not the intent, and we know that clearly, so that's certainly not something we want to pursue.
And I must say that the staff has had discussions with the landowner, saying, you know, hey, you know, why don't, let's apply a little common sense here. Can't you, you know, get along with the neighbors? And he knows there are no regulations against it, and he's not going to stop.
I have some questions.
Sure.
Go ahead. So, the landowner is doing work every day of the week in the mornings generally?
So it
And what time is it generally starting?
So it hasn't been every day.
Right.
Every day, but
More than not?
So his when we spoke to him, his compromise is, see, I start at 8 o'clock in the morning, or I'm starting later in the day as a compromise on the weekends.
Okay.
So it can be as early as 8 o'clock in the morning, but during the week, you can hear backup alarms and things moving around on the property as early as 6:30 in the morning.
Okay.
So with the windows open, we can hear backups. I don't know if it's his personal truck with the name of the construction company, but there's often a dump truck there with a trailer, and so I don't know if moving in and out of equipment or things like that. So.
And he does not have a residence on the property right now?
Not currently. They have the foundation, and I think the plan was to destroy the old house and then build a new residence. So again, the whole, you know, there's a lot of property there. So the concern is the future. If he does plan to subdivide that, I just want, you know, that could be years of Sunday noise and exploiting this. So that's really the concern.
And he's doing the work himself?
So that's not true. I mean, he's also up there. There's people up there on the weekends running the equipment, and that was my original concern. And the reason I went to talk to him, I said, you know, the people that you have, your employees working this land, are they aware of the property lines and that I have small children, you know, next door, right? So.
And it's always a Sunday though? I mean, he's definitely working pretty much every Sunday?
No, it's not every Sunday. But it's Sundays.
Quite often.
It's quite often. And in 2014, it was almost every Sunday.
Okay.
This summer it was less Sundays, but but well, you know, why should he get to choose what Sunday is okay for him to make noise and disrupt our family? But it's, you know what I mean? It's.
So, you know, it's funny. I mean, I used to work in commercial real estate years back, and I remember in one of the towns there you had an ordinance or a bylaw that regulated that if you were going to have these types of vehicles X amount or more, it would have to be in an industrial B zone, considered a landscape yard or something like that. So so we're not going to solve this tonight.
Sure.
But so there's two things. One, I think we've got to collectively start looking at how other communities are handling this. And while this situation is arising today, I can foresee other situations that will come up like similar to this or for other reasons. And if we don't have a noise ordinance, I'm not about just putting regulations in and stuff, but you're taxpayers like all of us, and you should enjoy the quality of life in town. And I haven't spoken to the owner of the property. Our town has, and apparently that hasn't necessarily come to a conclusion for you that you're satisfied with. So on our side, I'll ask Mike to help with the proper boards to do some investigation to see what we can do to alleviate some of the issues that you guys are finding. It is unacceptable. If I lived right next to this, I would, it sounds like you're
Look
a
at an
little bit
excavator
more-
all winter long out your window in the heat.
Yeah, I mean, look, the reality, maybe he is doing it as a hobby. And when you have other, there's two sides to the story, so
Sure.
I'm gonna take it for a grain of salt. But if there is other people on his property as a hobby playing with equipment up there, I don't understand that, because that's pretty expensive to do, as a hobby, and maybe he's got more, the wherewithal, which is fine. But, what I'm hearing in the pictures, it sounds like it's construction going on down there. And it may be, it may not be, but that's aside the point. It's really the time frames and the noises and stuff.
The town has been fantastic, and everyone we've talked to, even the state, I've reached out to the state health department and talked about this situation, and they pointed me in the right direction to some guidances. So we appreciate everything, and this was basically to wrap it up, to bring it to the selectmen, just to finalize. We've really contacted everyone, and we had considered it. I had considered it before personally. I don't know about Mike, but I think this. And we always thought it was going to get better and end, so I never went this far. But after the last few weekends, this is pretty much all
It's
we have at this
frustrating.
point. So
Yeah,
it's just we
entirely
appreciate the
frustrating.
consideration. So everyone's been empathetic. We appreciate it.
One thought, Mr. Chair, is is there any reason, the Board of Selectmen might not consider sending this homeowner or this landowner, a note, kind of outlining the situation, and it doesn't hold any teeth, but at least acknowledging, for your purposes, the situation and the frustration, and appeal to this gentleman's nobler motives or sense of decency that, if he could please do his best to, obviously eliminate early morning and late evening, noise and construction on the site, because it is right smack in the middle of a residential neighborhood, and that while it is not a subdivision, we do have this bylaw in a subdivision that actually has particular parameters that we would hope that he would respect minimally those particular parameters that we have for subdivisions on what he's doing on his property, so that he minimizes the disturbance to the neighbors. I think that would be the minimum that we could do, and may prove fruitless, but at least it's serving some notice and just saying, hey, look, please play nice with your neighbors and try to do the right thing.
Sure, so, I'll put you a point on that if you wouldn't mind drafting a letter.
Mr.
Okay,
Chairman,
Mike,
I
think
make a
it's little
suggestion.
fruitless,
I think it's,
but-
if I might, and just stick my 2 cents into this. First of all, I can't wrap my head around an individual building permit doesn't have times, inherent in it as the same as the subdivision.
It's not a building permit. He's doing this as a hobby. He's not constructing anything.
Well, wait a minute. He has to have, if he's building a house, he has to have a building permit to build that house and do the site work. Does he have an
That's
open
not
building
true.
permit?
No, he does not. Not yet. He's not building anything. He's just pushing dirt around.
And there's no.
Mr. Tagley, did you
Does a
say?
No,
foundation?
there's
Did
a
you say
barn
there's
there,
a
so we
foundation
believe that he
that's
did get the
poured?
permit to build the barn, and then there's a foundation that has gone in where the home would be. But this, I think he's been methodical about the approach, where I'm going to put in a driveway and then rebuild the wetlands and clear that land, and this is how I'm going to do it without being specific. And now the next approach is, okay, now I'm going to pull the permit for the home. So I think he's been very smart about the approach of getting the board and getting the approvals to clear the land, clear the trees. It's very clear. And now the next step was to, get the home permit. So that's.
Well, I mean, so to continue
there
my
is a
thought,
permit, yeah.
is so I would think a building permit has those subdivision guidelines, inherent in it, that you can't be out there at 11 o'clock at night framing a house with lights and everything else. I'm sure that, I mean, we've lived with it. I've lived with it. I'm only the third house on my street, and I've lived with construction, at night, and at times it's gotten loud. Not to the degree of this, but I thought there would be some type of inherent, in that whenever you issue a building permit, You gotta stop, when it gets dark, obviously you gotta stop outside work. I mean, inside's one thing. No, there's nothing there?
Not according to the building inspector.
Really? I mean, second thing would be, why don't we ask this gentleman to come in and talk with us? And just give us what his plan is. Look, we can't address the possibility that this is gonna become a subdivision. That, by right, he has the right to do that.
Absolutely.
We can't go on fear if that's gonna happen. That has to be taken on its own merit, so we can't even discuss that.
Correct.
But we can ask him about, what the plan is right now, and that, the neighbors are complaining, and it's becoming an issue, and it could be an issue that really escalates. And maybe we can, ask him, as a courtesy to, pay attention to the noise level and do something about it, and try to be more respectful to what the neighbors are going through. I don't know if that'll help. He doesn't have to come and see us. We can certainly extend an invitation for him to come up.
It hasn't worked yet,
Yeah.
because that's exactly what I asked,
We tried, but
and have been
we
rebuffed.
appreciate it.
Good. Well, you're in a butter. We're the selectmen, so maybe he'll come up and talk with us. I mean, by right, he doesn't have to. I don't think we have the authority to demand it. But I think we could extend an invitation to say that this is a problem in town, and we can address those problems. To the point where we want to make sure that, there is, tempers don't boil over. And, that we're concerned, so to see what his attitude is about it. And maybe he's at the point where he's gonna say, I'm 90% done, this is only gonna go along, happen for another, 6 or 8 weeks, or another, until the winter sets in, and then I'm done.
That's pretty much what we heard. It's,
Right.
I'm almost done, but
Yeah,
I
and
totally
again, to
understand.
his defense, maybe he's
Maybe
doing
he is
this,
almost done.
this is his property, and he's working a full-time day, and he's doing this on the weekends to try to get his property built. Who knows, but maybe we should extend an invitation before we write this letter, for him to come in and see us, so we can just let him know that we're concerned.
Can I just bring 2 quick points up? One being the zoning. He does have that large shed. Now, just so you know my point of experience, I've been a heavy equipment mechanic, repairing excavators for the past 35 years. All over New England, all over the country. That's my field of expertise. When I was talking to him, before he told me to leave the property, in his garage, he had supplies and stores that are used on his commercial job. M. Chuler and Son, which he works a lot in Everett. Now my question is, if this machines that he has on his property and the supplies that are inside the garage that are used on his job sites being transported back and forth, he has a Mack 10-wheel dump truck with a 20-ton tag-along trailer, which is used to move heavy equipment back and forth. That truck is parked at night. I haven't filmed it because I drive a commercial vehicle. I can't be on the phone. I have seen his employees getting out of it into their personal vehicles. In the mornings, the employees get into the truck from their personal vehicles. I don't know how the zoning regulations, but that is quite a concern. If he is using that barn to store materials that are used off-site on his jobs as M. Chula and Sons Incorporated, that wipes a homeowner or a hobbyist out of the.
Yeah,
out
no,
of
I
the,
don't disagree. Like I said, I've been in other towns where they've actually had these types of ordinances in place which would prevent a contractor or a driving company or whatever company to park their commercial vehicles on the residential property unless
I
it's
have to
zoned.
abide by those daily. The company I work for rents heavy equipment. They have over 150 machines I'm in charge of. They work all over New England. Somebody will rent one. I will get a call, Mike, you have to be dispatched to this location, which I've never been to fix this problem. First question out of my mouth, is there a noise ordinance? And that's long before I ran into this fellow. The first question, which town am I going into? What time can I be on the site? Because I have been approached by police, and if I wasn't aware of the ordinance, I just stop the truck, shut it off, and sit and wait.
Yep.
It's commonplace. An associate of mine who works at the same company is a police officer in West Newbury. He's been on my yard, listening to this with disgust. In West Newbury, again, West Newbury is not Georgetown, I realize that. They have an ongoing situation with construction. The police chief's orders to the officers in West Newbury, and he will provide me with the documentation, after the first complaint, it is considered disruption of the peace. It is arrestable. That's in West Newbury, and that is on record up there.
Well-
I don't want to take it to that point, but
I don't think we.
it is not, this is not an uncommon thing for towns to have ordinances on.
No.
We're not talking about a lawnmower. This is a 45-ton excavator he's driving around.
Yep. No, I understand. Okay, so, Dave, I like your suggestion. At least let's reach out and see if we can have the owner of the property come to one of our selectmen meetings and have a conversation. In the meantime, while that is going on, I think we still need to do our due diligence with other communities to see a little bit deeper, not only what the bylaws are reading, but how it's enforced and what costs are involved in enforcing those types of stuff. And I guess at the end of the day, is this a zoning bylaw change if we were to do anything? Is this a selectman noise ordinance, or is it, we're not sure yet?
It could be
Okay.
either.
Okay.
The other issue too, Mr. Chairman, is if somebody's operating a business, you know, not, I wanna say illegally, but without the proper permits and the proper registration, then that is a
Thank you.
violation, so that's something we're gonna wanna ask them, certainly ask them.
Yeah, we've already looked into that.
And you've looked into zoning for residential, having commercial equipment like that stored somewhere on the property?
Yes.
And there's nothing,
We have found nothing that violates any of our regulations.
Yeah, I mean, just remember, so Georgetown grew up as a, you know, a blue collar, you know, there was, you know, our zoning isn't perfect in the past where we've had, you know, residential people living next to industrial and developing along the side. So we're trying to clean that up, and we don't want these situations to arise. And there's a number of other potential noise things I know that could come down the pike here, and we'll be addressing at some point. So,
If I could speak to what you said when you're done.
no, so I was just gonna say, so listen, I, on our end, we'll do whatever we can, to make sure that we're fair to the homeowners out there, because this isn't for spot zoning or anything like that. I have to think of, and we as a board and our other boards have to think about what are the impacts on others in town if we do something like this? So these are all the considerations that we have to take into account. Go ahead, Gary.
You sort of touched on what I wanted to say. I mean, I personally would want to be careful. Most people are respectable. You've obviously got someone who's not respectable. But I think we need to be careful on how we tread, because I look at many of these guys as, I've stated this before, they're the backbone of this town. I mean, these are the people that when you're building a house, put in the septic systems. These are the people that when you're building homes and subdivisions that you call blue collar, dig the holes. So to me, I feel that we need to be careful with what we do to, as Phil said, the rest of the people in town that may be running a respectable business. And I think we need to be very, very cautious on how we move forward. And I think you touched a little bit about what we might want to do if we did talk about it. I don't know the procedures. I guess we as the board might be able to do something, or perhaps it's a bylaw. If you come up with something you see in another town, January's coming down the line, 10 citizens can sign a petition and put something on the town meeting warrant if you feel that, if your neighbors feel it warrants a noise ordinance or something. You know, you can also take things into your own hand in that way. That's part of what the town meeting is for. So.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, thank you, and thank you for bringing this to our attention, and we will see what we can do to work this through.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, gentlemen. Have a
And
nice
again, your
evening.
boards have been fantastic. Everyone in this town has been
That's good to hear.
fantastic.
Thank you for that. That's,
Okay. Excellent.
and recess?
Just, no, you don't need.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, Let's talk about what's next, the warrants for our special town meeting, November 2nd. All right, Mike, why don't you walk us through these warrants so we're all on the same sheet of music? We have to close the warrant tonight as well, right?
Yes.
Okay.
This fiscal adjustments to the operating budget, Article 1. When the assessing office and the accounting office were preparing and closing end of the year and getting started for the new year, filling out the DOR reports, we discovered a discrepancy that actually went back to last year's budget, and it centers mostly around the new growth figure. This is what was in the Finance Committee book as what was approved on the general revenue detail.
New growth lines, what we're looking at?
Yeah. And
This is off of 15, right? No.
Right.
15? Fiscal
And
15, yeah.
this, the second page, the second handout is our the actual revenue detail. It's the best way I can explain it. You notice in 15, let me make sure I have my pages correct. In April, when when the Finance Committee is finalizing the budget, the assessing office gives us an estimate of new growth. And it's from January to April, he's fine tuning it. But as you see, in 15, we only had $105,000 in new growth as the estimate. The actual new growth was almost $150,000. And that's what was actually reported to the DOR. What that does is change the FY16 starting figure for levy.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to, so we added an extra 45,000 to the levy, and in the FY16 estimate was 140,000, when in reality it was 163,000. So that's going to bump up the levy limit by the 45 and another, the difference between 23. So
24.
and it also affects the Proposition 2.5% levy limit growth. So the levy limit would go up to 2.5% of those combined numbers.
Okay.
And there was one other difference in the, when it was in the debt exclusion. We budgeted $100,000 for the middle high school construction project. That also included interest and principal, and also a couple other borrowings, primarily the $1.1 million borrowing for the turf field and the conservation easement that the CPC was borrowing. So we had the right expenses, but 53,000 of that was to be excluded as the payment for the middle high school project. So that didn't show up in the debt exclusion.
So that means that's going up another 53?
Yes.
On what, the 1854 or the 1772? You're talking about for 16?
For 16.
Okay. Plus 54 there.
So all those adjustments changed the allowable levy limit to 107, up by 117,905.
Okay.
And there were a couple other changes. When the state legislature finally got around to approving their budget in late July, we had an additional $15,446 in state revenue. That's a net change, because we also had originally counted the revenues from meals tax into the state revenue, but we were notified we're supposed to carry that as a local revenue. So we took it, netted it out of the general government state revenue and put it into the local receipts revenue. So that increased the local receipts by 60,000. If you add the additional 117,905 in levy, 15,446 in state, and 60,000 in local, comes out to 193,351 in additional revenue. That was approved at town meeting.
Isn't that 60 falling off someplace else in the budget, though?
It came off, well, it would have been 75,446 in state revenue if we left it there.
Well, all I'm saying is it doesn't sound like it's increasing by 60, it's just getting moved from one place to the other.
Well, it increased the local revenue.
Yes.
We decreased the state revenue by 60.
Right.
To compensate, so we're not double counting it.
So what I'm saying is that money sort of already was in the budget and been budgeted for?
Yes.
Okay.
Mike, I don't
It's just in a different category.
I don't see the 60 coming out, though.
There was a line item, if you look in on general government.
Yeah, state funding to local governments, 660, 385.
660.
It's underlined.
Right.
Where's
So you
the
took the
60?
60 out of there?
Yes.
Out of the 660, you took the 60 out.
So you take
No, out of the total general government, out of the 484.
Or 848.
The 848.
848,
rather,
sorry.
okay.
Yep.
is that?
Yeah, I don't see
Oh, I
that
see
either.
that. No,
Oh, I
that's
got it,
a
yeah,
few
okay.
lines down there. Okay, 848, total general government.
Well, that's what it originally was, or you changed it to 848?
That's the net change for all the other general government. If you notice,
So it would have been good to put them side by side, original change, so we could see it, you know what I mean?
well, that's why I gave you
That's
the
adjusted.
old and the new.
All right, so
You need to
put them
it
side by
side by
side.
side yourself.
Come on, serve it up on a platter, will you?
Okay, he's got it at 916 previous.
Okay, so the net is that with the additional revenue that we have gotten, which was not originally in the budget, we've had to move here, and we need to use these funds to make adjustments to the operating budget for 2016?
Not quite yet.
This
Oh.
money hasn't been collected though, right?
No, but I mean, these are our estimates for next year's revenue. Actually, the Finance Committee actually asked me to estimate the meals tax at 65, and it only came in at 55 for this year, and DOR will only allow us to increase any revenue by 10% without, real solid reasoning to do so. So I suggested back to them that we cut it back to 60, because originally we were counting 65.
So could we just take a step back for a minute and look at this at a 30,000-foot view?
Well, when you see the other part of it, then I think it would be appropriate. There's,
But what are we using this money for? 16 is already done and voted, right?
let me finish.
All right, good.
The other side of the committee of conference was the charges, the state charges that we pay. And we used all our estimates were from the previous years. That was all we had to go by. So the state charges, to make a long story short, ended up to be 54,951 more than they charged us the previous year.
So that includes school choice, charter school, Essex County tech tuitions, overlay. I'm just trying to help everyone understand what these charges are for.
The state offset charges of 206, 212, that includes, if you go down halfway of the page, it breaks that number down. The school choice receiving tuition is 196, and public library is 10,082. That's where you get your 206.12.
Okay.
And then the tax recap from the cherry sheet.
16.
That gets you your, your 196 and your 23,372. And it's very convoluted the way it's done, because then we throw in the overlay on top of it, and that just really confuses things. But the difference, it proofs out, if you take the subtotal, the difference between what was proposed and what the tax recap charges, they both total out to 54,951. So those are additional expenses we weren't budgeting. So when you take the 193,351 and take out the 54,951, you come out with 138,000.
So,
as-
Mike, I have a question on the state offsets for a second. So, in your fiscal year 2014, the charges, well, 2013 were 649,000. In 14 were 624. In 15 were 551. So, obviously, the trend line has been going down. How, we originally budgeted 606,379 based on new growth and other estimates or whatever. And now we're up to 650,000, back to the same levels as FY13. Are we getting any more services out of this, or are they just changing the formulas so the towns have to pay more?
Well, in certain areas, they say they've changed the formulas. That's generally the excuse we're given, that the formulas are being changed. But 2 years ago, with state revenue, we lost $50,000 in another item for state forest land. They used to pay us $175,000 in payment in lieu of taxes. Now they only pay $125,000. So that was 3 budgets ago. That was in FY13. But that hasn't changed. They haven't restored that to us. And they play around with other formulas that don't really benefit us. They benefit
Right.
the poorer towns and the bigger school districts.
Well, those numbers though, that 649 and 624, that was included Essex County text sending tuition up until 2015 when they moved that to the school budget.
That's correct.
So that would be the drop in those numbers to the middle fives. Upper-
Yes.
In the beginning, it worked its way back.
Well,
up.
on the general budget, so those charges just went over to the schools instead.
Right.
So,
It went over to education. We didn't increase the school's budget per se. We just included it under the
Right, but-
education
Right,
line.
but it took it out of the charges, out of the
Yes.
state charges and
Yeah.
moved it over.
Mhm.
okay.
So can I ask my 30,000-foot question?
Yes.
I've been hanging on a
You've been waiting?
parachute. So what does it all mean?
It means we
can't-
have $138,000 in tax levy that we haven't budgeted
Accounted for.
or in other words, we have an additional $138,000 in revenue available to the town.
Through tax bills?
The growth,
the
maybe.
levy-
Mostly through new growth,
Mm-hmm.
and mostly through the debt exclusion.
So my question was, where's the money coming from? Are we gonna see, a little bit?
No,
bit-
no,
'cause they
as a-
back into this number, right?
As a matter of fact,
For tax rate.
it hasn't been officially certified, but the tax rate is actually dropping approximately 10%.
Okay.
It's going down
State
from
tax rate?
1603 to
Tax bills are going up.
1587.
Right, because valuations are higher.
Why? Because valuations went up?
Yeah.
Valuations did go up,
Yeah.
and according to the assessor's office, the way, and he's calculated it to the dollar, a third of the taxpayers, tax bill will go up, a third will stay the same, and a third will go down.
So the $138,400 is above and beyond any 2.5% increase that we have available to us.
Well,
All
it
things being
includes
equal.
additional 2.5% increases
Right.
as well.
Right. So this is above and beyond our normal 2.5% that we would normally go up in the course of a year. So we're heading into 2017 with additional revenue of $138,000.
Yes.
Above and beyond what we would normally pick up in the 2.5%.
However, $138,000 in unexpected budget needs to be paid,
It does,
so it's an offset.
pretty much.
Well, yeah, there's gonna be increases in expenses. And listen, we try to stick to the 2.5% on the expense side. We all know that, but, so, again, we have more available to us.
The state's going up 10%, yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, some other areas could get cut back too on the revenue side. Put expenses aside for a minute. On the revenue side, we don't know what the state's gonna do. There could be some cuts in other areas. You just don't know. Like Mike said, you know,
Well, fit all the formulas,
you know, depending upon where we are. But, I mean, that does bode well for us moving into next year, though. I'd rather be positive than negative, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
So,
so back to the warrant article.
so when I discussed this with the Finance Committee, I also told them that what wasn't included in the budget was the utility expenses for the new school.
In 16's budget?
Right.
Okay.
We had the $119,000 for the old Pembroke School.
Right.
When I asked the architect how much it's gonna cost for utilities in the new school, they went to their engineers and they said the engineers estimated that it would, total utility cost would be $2 a square foot. It's a 98,000 square foot building, would be $196,000. We had budgeted $119,000 for the old school. So there's a gap of $67,500 in new school versus old school.
I asked, I had this conversation with Mike earlier today, so one of the things I'm going to ask the school administration after they get some data here is to help us get an understanding of the run rate, I guess, on a month-to-month comparison year over year, which is not the easiest to compare, but given the weather, you never know.
You need a year.
But at least the first 6 months to get us a sense of the difference. And then the other is at the Pearly School, I don't know if there's any savings in utility costs or operating costs. So operating costs isn't just utilities, it's all the other, it's maintenance and stuff like that. So while utilities may be higher than the last building because it's a bigger building, my hope in this whole thing is that the maintenance costs are less, and other operating costs to run the building, not labor per se, but just the all the equipment costs, any capital, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we got to do that. We need to get a long-term understanding of what it is we need to budget every year. We got to get some data.
So the Finance Committee, when presented with this information, recommended that the FY16 operating budget be adjusted accordingly. And this electrical versus natural gas, that's just a guess, 20%, 60-40. I have no way of knowing how that's gonna shake out because they just gave us that's what it was for the old Pembroke School, so I'm just applying it. That's the only thing I have to base it on.
Okay.
And because in the budget process, the reserve fund was reduced from 95,000 to 50,000, the Finance Committee recommended restoring that cut. It gets them up over 95,000 with the balance. But because of the uncertainty, they feel it would be better to have additional reserve fund than they have in the past.
Okay, so the 138,000 in unforeseen expenses here are going to be paid for with the 138,000 from the increase in revenue, unexpected increase in revenue.
Correct.
And this is what the Finance Committee has made a recommendation for.
Yes, they voted unanimously on that.
All right. I know the details and the weeds are a little confusing because there's so many line items that are kind of affected by this. But I think from an understanding of what the situation is with the budget, the increase in the budget, which, to be quite frank, I am a little disappointed that we didn't make an adjustment for the new school for any expected increase in utility costs over there. That's just a miss. We definitely should have looked at that. However, the good news is that we've got some monies to cover that. And I guess in the end, it's a wash. If we had the monies up front and we knew the budget, we're going to spend it there anyhow. We have to, or at least have to strongly consider that. So, gentlemen, if you guys are ready to make a motion on this, we can certainly continue the discussion on this, but it's $138,000.
So we're gonna take a vote on each article?
Each article.
Yeah, we're going to talk to everyone. I just need Article 1, STM 15-1.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve or recommend, what's the motion gonna be? Recommend approval of? Recommend approval of Article 1, adjustments to the fiscal year 2016 operating budget, electricity expense, line item 11,512, 30,600, natural gas expense, 11,000, line item 11,513, 45,900, and then increase the reserve fund for 61,500, totaling $138,000.
More than that, isn't it?
That's a little
138
less than
even,
that.
isn't it?
Yep.
I added it, but
No, I missed the 500.
All right, we have a second. Guys, any further discussion on this?
If I may, Mr. Chair,
Sure.
just, Mike, remind me, sometimes I need reminding, what we use the reserve fund for and how that gets expended.
That is expended, it's used to cover shortfalls in the expenditure budget, and it's by the approval of the Finance Committee. My practice has always been to bring it to the attention of the Board of Selectmen.
Both boards. Yeah.
Yes, but it only requires the approval by law by the Finance Committee when we do line item transfers at the end of the year. That it requires both boards' approval. So it's usually a combination of the two. When we
So in
get
other
down
words,
the end of the budget, the budget year.
If we didn't have this shortfall, we might have been using what's rest in the reserve fund to fund this electricity expense and natural gas expense.
Of the increased revenue, yes.
And so we're now moving that reserve fund up to,
Oh, well, it's only at 50 now.
Okay.
Because they had to find an additional 40, what they thought was an additional $45,000 to fund operating budgets.
and that doesn't, what happens if that doesn't get used? That rolls over into free cash the
Yes.
following year?
Yeah, that's why they like to, we've been using that reserve fund as a free cash fund.
Thank you.
That way it can't get spent without further approvals.
So that would be soft landing 2.0?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Any further discussion, gentlemen? Okay, all those in favor of recommending approval of Article 1, say aye.
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 All right.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Article 2, all right. What's the recommendation?
Article 2 is, the Finance Committee recommended, that the debt service be paid off fully. And the reasoning for that, we received, and once again, we haven't yet gotten final certification, but the free cash, I had estimated conservatively that it would increase by $100,000. It's actually increasing by $215,000. So our position in free cash is $600,000 versus it was $385. And we thought we'd end up with $485, but we're ending up with $615. So there'll still be well over $300,000 left in free cash if we pay off the 275 plus deficit.
That's favorable.
And does that include any of the money we're getting reimbursed for these storms?
We netted out, we can take a credit
Right.
for the FEMA money, which is approximately 125,000.
So
yeah,
that's in the 600 already?
No, that, we reduced the
What you're gonna pay off?
The overall-
deficit.
Okay,
That's-
yeah.
that's
All
in
right,
the
same
270.
thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right, if anyone has a motion for me?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve STM 1502. Recommend approval for STM 15-02 as Article 2 shows right now,
As submitted?
as submitted.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of recommending Article 2? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. You missed it. All right,
Aye. I was gonna come up with a suggestion, but I missed the discussion, so, you know.
well, you can still discuss it.
Well, no,
You already moved it.
when we get to another article, I'll bring it back up.
Okay, Article 3, unpaid bills. Mike?
We typically have some bills that we couldn't find a payee for. Usually it's Copeland and Page bills or Boston Systems. We charge different departments or it gets billed to the wrong department and we
Chase it.
we chase it around and don't get it paid in time for the end of the fiscal year. And that's the same for Boston System Solution, Copeland Page this year. The big difference is there was a major screw up in the billing for the Pembroke School this year. We were paying the bills that we were given. And then in March, they said, oh, we went back to November and you owe us 16,000. We didn't account for. We can account for it now.
Who, the school or the light department?
Light department. And, you know.
Was for the Pembroke School.
But it was for Pembroke. And they were, I mean, there were two separate meters, one for the new school and one for the old school. But they lost track of it.
So is this metering the old?
They're saying yes.
Because we're not on the hook for the new school metering, while the contractor
No,
has it in his possession.
We can't, yeah, exactly. It was, the builder, Great Builders was responsible for that.
Right.
And we
So
would
we're
have,
not
we
getting-
would have paid for that out of the building fund.
Right.
When I discussed this with the finance committee, Wayne Snow's on the finance committee, and even he shook his head and scratched his head on this one. And he was gonna be meeting with Dave Schofield to be able to talk the same language and find out what truly happened and how it happened. Dave just told me, said, look, we've gone through these numbers again and again, and you know, this is what the town owes us. And I didn't pay it at the end of the fiscal year because I hadn't received a good enough explanation. So this could change before the town meeting, depending upon how Wayne and Dave, and I will join that conversation, but it doesn't seem right to me. But I didn't want to drag it out. I wanted to get it paid and maybe argue it over it later.
So I'll look at it this way. So the business is imperfect, and if this was in a private sector situation, I can tell you that the user of the electricity would be paying this. It was a vendor mistake. I don't see that they would actually work any number. They would have had to pay it in the past. I don't know what the mistake was down there. It happens. I don't like to see it happen, especially with our light department and affecting the town, because it messes up our numbers. But I mean, we have a pretty good partnership with the light department. If there's anything that you can do to have leverage to help us, please do with the finance department. Huh?
That's why we asked Wayne to step in.
Yeah, I mean, that's just
If I may, if I'm correct, my memory's correct, the bills were normal. It wasn't like you saw this drop off the bills suddenly, if I remember what you said.
That is correct,
Yeah,
Gary.
the bills that you were
'cause I
getting
was-
in looked normal. There wasn't like 16 all of a sudden, oh wow, electricity's gone down.
I had the last 2 years, month by month, and the current year, and I was making sure, because
that's 100% increase year over year on average. If we're paying $120,000 a year budgeting for electricity down there,
it was a huge increase.
so the average monthly expenses are $10,000. So in addition to the 10 that it normally would be in November, or say whatever the average would be, there was a $17,000 on top. So I would love to see if Wayne could help us come to that. The reason why it would be such a spike.
Probably cost
I mean, I remember.
We're probably paying for the
November.
contractor's tab right there.
It's almost as much as my electric bill last month.
November is last year wasn't a
Oh,
bad
you mean
month.
for the credit union?
My house.
Oh, I was saying for your house. You're crazy.
I don't know. I can't remember. But
Close.
please keep us posted on,
Yeah,
on that.
and while we're talking about it, I want to, and I'm asking Wayne also to look into this. The current electric bills for the new building are astronomical. July, and now I was told they were running all the systems full bore. AC was on all summer. So if it doesn't come back, but for September, we've got more problems than we realize. 'Cause the-
Well, remember, September was 90 degrees.
It was hot.
It's 20, is it 25?
How much was it?
I think one was 16,000 and one was 14,000 a month,
Electric and what?
July and August.
Each month.
Yeah.
Okay,
electric.
so if they're running the ACs down there, that makes sense. In the normal time in the summer, though, that wouldn't be happening, right?
No, it'd be closed,
Right.
but more unanticipated utility costs.
Hmm.
That, 76,000, that's not including anticipated $14,000 a month electric bills, far from it.
Okay, well, we will, again, my hope is that if for a bigger building, the efficiency of the costs should come down per square foot. And the other hope is that the other operating costs of the building come down as well to offset some of that. We'll have to do some work on that to figure that out. It may be a big impact for us going forward.
As maintenance budget.
Yeah, I don't,
Yep.
we don't pay them 8.
I'll work, I'll talk to Carol and I'll ask her to,
No, I know, but maybe the
Start
maintenance
working on
budget's
that.
gonna be less, so they can transfer, line item transfer. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, So these numbers can be
Again, it
amended.
is for their new school, so we might want to make that point very clear.
These numbers can be amended at town meeting, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Can I get a motion on Article 3?
Okay, Mr. Chair, motion to recommend approval of unpaid bills STM 15-03 as presented.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
Just for the record, we understand that these numbers could change.
Article 3. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, Article 3. Motion carries. Article
Should be 4.
4, which is STM 15-4, the senior center.
Change that.
Right.
All right, so before we get into this, so I talked to Mike, and I had a conversation today. He was away at a conference in Seattle last week. I know you working to see if there's creative options for us to reduce the costs and or scope of what we need to do at the senior center, or at least phase this. And Mike, maybe you can just share where you are with that, and any other ideas that any other board members have thought of or brought up before, that they were heading down a path to help.
Yeah, well, this article was, the wording of this is a placeholder, because the real appropriation will be made in the motion. So this gives us the broadest leeway right now, gives us every avenue available to us to raise and appropriate the money. We can fine tune it in the motion. But I should have the actual cost, the overall cost, the total cost, by our next meeting. And as you know, I've had discussions, initial discussions with Whittier to do a lot of the construction, or the carpentry construction. I will have something, hopefully, I will have to have something by next meeting from them, a decision on what they can provide. And then the other piece is the CPC. Well, we're not gonna know that until May. But knowing if Whittier's involved, if and when Whittier is involved, it's gonna help the CPC. And we'll be able to, hopefully, and as I stated previous meetings, the Whittier piece has to begin this winter. They'll be done by town meeting with whatever they can provide. So we are gonna need funding of some sort to pay for that part of the construction. And they don't do plumbing. There is some plumbing that has to be done, and they haven't done electrical work in a long time outside of the school. That's not to say that they wouldn't take advantage of this, because it's inside work for the students to work on real commercial, on a commercial project. That's what was so appealing to the construction teacher, that he could actually get his kids working on hands-on commercial work. And we have reduced the scope. The expensive ACs out. We're going to use the Mitsubishi, not window units, but the wall units, Mitsubishi. And we've scaled back the entrance area hugely. So the electricity, the AC, HVAC was gonna cost about $100,000. The entrance was approximately $100,000. So if we cut them back by the order of 60–80%, you know, there's substantial savings there, and we're getting back into the $300,000 range.
Mike, I have a question for you. So, and don't take this personally, you're not a project manager, and we didn't hire you to be one, so I don't want you to be a project manager for this. Do we have a project manager? Because I'm thinking about all the different milestones and critical path. If we bring in Whittier, who is the person looking at this from an engineering standpoint or architectural standpoint to say, you can do this, but you can't do this because of the plumbing that needs to be done in the future? Or, I mean, I trying to get a sense of, do we need to hire a project manager for this as well?
It's already done, because when we put the project out to bid, it was for the design, bid, and construction management by the architect firm.
Okay.
So they'll provide the necessary pieces to do all that.
Okay, so they'll be in touch with
That's-
Whittier.
That's in our bid.
Okay, thank
Question, Mr. Chair.
Because I know I'm not a
project manager. And like I said, no offense.
No one else on
I couldn't do it.
town staff is either.
Yeah. Mike, what kind of exposure do we have from Whittier doing work? You know, as far as liability, as far as guarantee of work, stuff like that.
We haven't discussed those details, but they would, you know, it'd be, you know, they wouldn't be liable for, we wouldn't be liable for them, and they wouldn't be liable for us.
They'd have to deliver on the specifications, which have to be approved by the building inspector.
Yes.
But I mean, they would indemnify the town?
Something to that effect. There'd probably be indemnification.
Okay. I just, you know, that's, I'm just sitting there going, whoa, you got students.
I'm sure I'm sure they have a standard that they use, but we would have legal counsel review that standard to make sure it wasn't.
That's why there's a project manager, right?
Too full of holes.
Yeah, okay.
Dave?
Sorry,
So my next comment, I'll probably get some hate mail from the from the FinCom, but was there any discussion around splitting the ice and snow deficit into 2 years and using approximately $138,000 towards the senior center one time?
There was a discussion. Matter of fact, the chairman put it out on the table for them to discuss. I mean, I was pushing 3 years.
Yeah.
They were pushing 1. They were willing to meet in the middle, but when the additional free cash was known, that kind of went out the door.
Yeah, because I was on the impression it was going to be a 2-year. That's what I thought was coming. At least that's what it looked like.
But that was based on only a $100,000 increase.
I mean, I hate to push stuff off, but you know that 138,000 could have really given us a nice boost to at least a first phase of construction for the senior center. You know, and if you're going to reduce the cost to maybe 350, I mean that's almost half of it right there.
Yeah.
You know, well, it's 35% of it maybe.
No, they did discuss it, but it was a very strong opinion on unanimously.
Okay.
They wanted to clean it up?
Yes.
I'm with you, Dave, on that. I'm just looking at the future expenses of the town and revenues coming forward and pressures ahead. I want to.
Yeah, we're hoping no snow this year. That's all. All right, I just wanted to bring that up. That's where I was on the other vote.
Okay, so we need to figure out some funds that are going to be available for us to at least get it started with some work from the project manager and Whittier and/or others, so.
There's a
we'll figure out what
suggestion
those
on that
costs
too.
are. Yeah.
Maybe check in with Northeast Regional Vocational School. They have a pretty robust plumbing program there.
Northeast?
At Wakefield. They're in Wakefield, Mass.
Oh,
I know because my uncle was the plumbing teacher for about 30 years. So maybe you want to check in with them.
They teach plumbing at Whittier, though.
they do, but they don't go outside.
Oh, okay.
And maybe Northeast Vocational School may.
Or Essex Aggie, I don't know if they have
Essex
any.
County now.
Yeah,
too.
the Essex, yeah. They're North Shore.
Oh, and Essex Aggie, I still call it Essex
Yeah.
Aggie, but whatever.
There's two schools,
Essex
two other
Tech?
schools, Mike. The,
Yeah, the Essex Tax,
Yeah.
Tech, whatever.
Yeah,
The
Formerly
one we got
Essex
the big
Aggie.
increase
They
on.
Yeah.
may have some things going
North
on.
Shore Tech and, they would combine, North Shore Tech and Essex Aggie, so. And then check in with the people in Wakefield too, the school in Wakefield.
That's Northeast Vocational?
Yes,
All right.
Wakefield, Mass.
So, Mr. Chair, make a motion, Article 4, Senior Center, STM 15-04.
Second.
As presented.
Okay, a motion to recommend approval for Article STM 15-04. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Only one word in there. I'd like to strike borrow. I don't think that we should be borrowing money to pay for the senior center. And borrowing is more debt. Debt usually translates to a possible higher tax rate. And I believe that the general sentiment has been to avoid borrowing. And if we take it out of there, then we have to work harder to make sure that we don't borrow the money to do it.
Well, so a couple of things on that. One, I don't think there's really a sentiment not to borrow. I think this town is borrowing within our capacity very professionally. I don't think that with our AA rating and our bonding, we still have a lot of wiggle room if we have to, and I'm not suggesting we do it for this. However, Mike, for this particular one, we don't need to borrow anything anyhow, right? Because we're going to be, whatever funds we have ourselves to get this thing started. What funds that we'd have? It would be free cash
Have to come out of,
or reserves. Those are the only two, right?
yes.
Well, it could come out of STAB fund, could come out of free cash. We could borrow and still pay for that borrowing within our own budget. So that's why I would be totally against taking out that option. We wouldn't be increasing taxes, right? We could cut some other areas and use that funding for the borrowing so that we could do the whole project up front. Again, that's up to the townspeople, but I wouldn't want to leave that option off the table. Doesn't necessarily mean more taxes if we borrow. We can find money to pay the borrowing.
Well, I mean, if you wanted to find things to cut to pay for it, then that's
Yeah,
one thing.
there may be some hard choices for that, yeah. So I wouldn't want to take that option out.
I agree.
The debt service on, well, on a $500,000.
50,000, right?
65,000
Yeah.
for 10 years.
Right. Which another borrowing may be falling off, which we could use for other expenses or reduce taxes, I agree. But we could also use it for this, in this particular case, if we needed to. And that could be, 180,000 or 200,000 comes out of free cash and we borrow the rest, and find a way to pay for that within the budget.
Right. I guess the only question I have is for this particular special town meeting in the fall. Not that I care about the language on this, because we're going to end up trying to figure out where we're going to come. But we're looking for a small amount to get Whittier started, right? And when I say a small amount,
Yeah.
probably sub 100,000.
Yeah.
And then if we're going to go and borrow money, we would probably bring that up when we know what CPC has available
Right.
for us.
Right.
So that would be at the spring town meeting. That's the only reason why I'm mentioning that. So, okay, I got it. I hope you guys are clear on that as well.
If I may, though.
Sure.
I don't want to take out borrowing. I agree with David. You don't know where CPC is going. I mean, I as a member, I feel like if we can borrow within the budget with some things falling off, I wouldn't support CPC funds for this, quite truthfully, myself. And I know that we've got some things falling off. Now, I don't know, it would definitely mean working with finance and Mike. What comes to my mind was the bond we just took out on the CPC. It was from approval, by the time we bonded, it was, what, a year and a half? So, because we could possibly do a bond anticipation note for a little while till something falls off. I know like the fire truck will be falling off.
Yeah, but you're gonna put a new one right back on.
Well,
But to
there's
Gary's
some other
point,
things,
right.
there's some other things that are falling off.
Right.
There's some land at the landfill. I think there's some borrowing there that I believe is falling off that's not debt excluded. There's several things, plus like the capital, we took a 5-year bond to buy some trucks and I think some tractors and that, and I think there's gonna be, what, 2 more years left on that? That may not be, 2 years might be too late, but
So Gary, your comment that you wouldn't necessarily, are not in full support of the CPC funding this, is that just because of the dollars issue or the project itself? I'm just trying to make sure,
It's not the project. We don't know what's coming in front of us on CPC. So I mean, let's just
You
say
don't-
it's,
you can't make
it's
it
not a
part of an
definite
AGS.
that this is there.
Absolutely. I just want to make sure that it's clear,
Yeah.
because when you said it to the public, they probably will say, what, he doesn't want to support the senior center, and I know that's not what you're trying to say.
No, what I'm trying to say is
I know.
I'd like to see this come together this fall and this winter and move ahead fully. Not, because if you start a piece of it and then, well, we're waiting for this piece to fall in place. Well, what if you don't get that vote in May? Then where are you? You're back to the drawing board. So I'd say if we can
Yeah,
pull,
then it
if we
becomes
can,
a 10-year
if we can
skateboard
pull it
park that
together,
hasn't been built.
pull it together, that's what I'm saying.
So by fall town meeting, you're hoping that we can pull this together?
I'm hoping that what we'll do, we will get the wording passed at the fall town meeting, and then we will work with Mike, with the contractors, and with finance. And at that time, we'll be also working on next year's budget. So we should be able to find out whether we can borrow if needed, or whether there will be enough free cash, or as David said, that there's a stab fund, and I know how much, I mean, I know how much he loves to build that up,
I
but I heard
protect
the
that
word
like
just come out of
crazy.
his mouth.
Yep,
And, you know, so I think we can,
And to your point, it's about a cash flow issue, meaning for the first year for that 65,000, we may vote as a town to take that, you know, again, out of stab fund or free cash or a piece, you know, just because we bond it doesn't mean we take the bond that day. You know, the bond could be set out a year from there, and the first initial payment of some of the work could be come out of free cash, come out of stab. I mean, we could do a combination of anything. That's why I don't want to take anything out of the toolbox. I want the whole toolbox there, and we can manage that. Doesn't mean we have to, but it's still available to us.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, and maybe it's just, well, the medicine wearing off finally. So Mike, at fall town meeting, we can try to use this language for a nominal amount that we think is gonna cover the project, and then further on, find the money for it. Okay.
You have a second on that?
Yeah, you have a motion and a second on the floor.
All right. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Everyone vote?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right. Well, good. I think we're all in alignment that we want to figure out how to get this thing done, which is great.
Well, as long as you can do it without borrowing, it's great.
Okay. Article 3, the Water Department operating budget. Article 3, Water Department operating budget, STM 15-05.
This is just to clarify a vote that was taken at the May town meeting. We raised and appropriated $1,948,000 for the water department, but we didn't specify that of that 1,948, 416 was coming out of their retained earnings. So we just have to clarify that.
Right, and that's what Lou came in to explain to us.
Yes. Otherwise, the whole amount would have to have come out of the rate base. They don't want to do that. They didn't intend that to happen.
Mr. Chair, I move to recommend for approval, Article 5, Water Department Operating Budget STM 15-05, as presented.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second on the motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Carried. Article carries. All right, I need a motion to close the warrant.
So moved.
Second.
All those in, any discussion? All those in favor of closing the warrant?
Aye.
Say
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the warrant is closed.
Okay.
So we haven't had any citizens petitions or anything?
No, we have not.
Okay. So right now, if someone wanted to submit a citizen's petition, they're out of luck.
They'd have to wait until the spring, I guess.
Okay, just wanna make sure it's clear, 'cause all right, speaking of which, and the reason I bring that up is, everyone I think on the board has been aware, and maybe you can just help us here, and for the public's sake, because I've got a lot of questions from people regarding the proposed business, being opened, that was submitted called, Strange Days, which is a smoke shop that was looking to open up, downtown. And I've got some rumors that the proprietor is withdrawing, and I asked Mike today if that was true, and we don't know just yet if it's formally been withdrawn or not, because the building inspector has given an opinion that it has to go to the planning board. I know this isn't out of our is not quite in our jurisdiction. However, at the same time, as I'm sure all of you guys have been getting a number of emails on it. So, my position. You just start answering. My position is that I mean, we've got to be fair to both sides. If they're allowed, by right, then we've got to make sure that we consider that, and from the citizens also, in their best interests, what they're trying to do, we got to consider that as well. So I've said to them, I said, look, because they all want to talk about zoning bylaw change or whatever bylaw change. I said there's two ways to do that. One is to go and work with the zoning board, I guess would be the appropriate body for changing a bylaw down there.
Actually, zoning bylaws have to be changed by the planning board.
By planning board, okay. To the planning board then, and start the discussion to see if there's something reasonable that could be drafted and considered, if that's what they want. And the alternative is certainly a citizen petition at Springtown meeting. Now, we prefer you guys work with the planning and zoning boards to see if we can do this. So a much more, I think, thought out and deliberate process than quickly doing something on a citizen's petition. But anyhow, there is time for doing something by the spring. So for those folks, stay posted. You'll see through some meetings, I guess, and people want to know what's going on. I'll try to communicate when I hear anything as well. Anyone else have any comments or questions on that?
A lot of emails and a lot of texts.
Yeah, both for and against. So it's it's an issue that people have.
A lot of empty buildings that might all of a sudden fill up with this new thing. It's something I guess we didn't think of, but.
I know. I hear you. Stu said that he was interested in putting a Cheetos business right next to the medical marijuana facility if that opens up.
I just wonder,
Brownies. So.
what I wonder is if the proprietor had chosen a more appropriate name, whether we'd even be having this discussion.
Well,
because everything that he's proposing to sell, you can sell.
We would be having this discussion because as soon as they found out what exactly they were going to be selling in there, they would be. I'm glad it kind of came out in the open So the proprietor knows the challenges that they're being faced with, as opposed to if they went through that whole process
Yeah.
already. So in
understand.
some respect, I think it worked out okay for them, if they are withdrawing, or if they're still,
Right.
interested.
Well, he just has as many rights as
Of course.
the population. We want to make sure that we don't step on those.
No, and I know all of us on our board have not taken a position one way or the other publicly, as, from a board sense. I personally haven't, and I haven't heard any of you guys also. It was just, we need to know more. So, all right, I'll let that one go. All right, next on the agenda. So on the selectmen's report, there's two things here that I want to get through first real quick. So we have some contracts that are coming up that I wanted to get started on, the police chief's contract and our town administrator's contract. I have copies here, and I'm going to ask the police chief and our town administrator to help me understand if there are any particular requests they're looking for on their contract. So I'll get those out to you with some time frames. I think, from my understanding with the police chief, I think it's, and I have not just had a chance to speak with Mike regarding his contract yet, but I understand the police chief, it was re-signed similar to what he's already got, and I'm sure with Mike it won't be that much of a change. I hope, Mike. We'll find out. But anyhow, I'll get those to you so we can start those conversations. And if there's really no big changes on that, then let's see if we can take care of them at next, I think October 19th meeting. All right. Next to business. So Gary has submitted to the Board of Selectmen, or at least to me, and I've sent it out to all of the other selectmen, an open meeting law grievance, I guess. So Gary, I read the information that was in the packet, and I think the other folks on the committee, or on our board, have as well. And on our side, from process, we sent this to our town council as well, just to make sure that, one, we're responding to the complaint that you have and making sure that we're following the process ourselves. Second, to make sure that I understand what the actual open meeting law violation was that you're complaining about. The response I got from the town council was that there was, it was very difficult for him to, based on the information that was submitted, to find any violation of the open meeting law. And that was after I read it, and I was looking, and I couldn't find anything either. But I want to give you an opportunity to, one, I understand, have you submitted anything to the Attorney General's office just yet?
No, I felt that this was, the way I read in the Selectmen's Handbook, this is sort of an internal way of trying to come to a solution.
Okay.
Granted, it does say that you have to turn this over to them.
Yep.
That it happened, and I am glad you reached out to council. So, no, I guess I will have the opportunity, if I'm not happy with the outcome of what we as a board try to come to a resolution on this, I would have an opportunity, if I felt, to move it forward. But I don't know that I want to go that avenue. I was really hoping and felt that, I made you aware that this was coming, and you did ask if we could perhaps talk about it, and I said, no, I really think that it needs to be talked about and out in the open. I've had problems in the past with communications within the board, and I feel that hopefully we can come to some resolution as a board. moving
Okay.
forward on some procedures.
So, given that, then let's discuss it. Whether you've submitted it or not, I still want to understand.
It's submitted to you, yeah, so
Okay,
it
so
it
you
is an official, it's an official
Yeah.
complaint by all means.
So help us understand, what exactly would you like to accomplish, and how can we help make that happen?
I gotta find my notes on, I did write us up some pages of what I feel that we can get to. I don't know. Why don't I start with where I feel the complaint came?
Yeah,
I
sure.
mean, I tried to lay this out in a timeline for you, how I got there, how I got the information. And it started with not sure what type of a letter we got from the bargaining.
So can I just take a step back? Is there an open meeting law violation that you are trying to get the Attorney General to agree with that we need to
What I
make a
feel-
remedy to, or are you trying to just
I
have a
feel that-
conversation with us that maybe there's a better way to communicate with you?
I feel
or
that
us
we as a
board?
board can come to a resolution on this, yes.
Okay, good. I just want to
Yes.
get that out there.
What I got to in this timeline, Phil, was in discussion with Mike, and I had some questions about some of the emails that I got via our emails that I'd never seen, that I got through personnel in the fire department, one person. And I'm rather concerned that I'd never seen this particular email. And so I went, Mike actually had given it to me prior, as I tried to state out in the timeline of how this all happened. And when I talked with Mike about it, I was concerned about the part that, well, I got to read it in what I wrote, that the perception of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee that the fire department personnel were volunteers. And to my knowledge, I know we had some executive meetings on the way we were paying the fire department,
Mhm.
but never do I remember us taking a vote of any time or even talking about them as a volunteer. Matter of fact, when I saw this email, I think most on this board know, I'd have been all over that, because I kept saying, there's gotta be a different way that we can do this. So, when I talked with Mike about this, he told me that he had gone over this with the chair at the time, and that the chair spoke for the board, and I disagree with that. That you can't just randomly have a chair speak for the board and then put it out there as a board decision. That's where I feel there's a violation. I feel at the meeting, emails went out speaking for the board, yet the board never talked about it. I not only, you know, and I also put in, it's just, to me, it's a violation of public trust.
Okay. So let me just respond to a little bit about that. So I'm clear, and I just want to make sure I understand it. So the volunteer classification, so they've always been considered volunteers, and we haven't decided to change anything or add anything. So I'm not sure I understand if there's been no decision made on anything. There's been, I mean, that's the way that they've always been paid, and
I was told that they're a call fire department, therefore they're not. Now, one of the things I did say to, and ask Mike in our conversation that day, and I think I've asked it right here at this board with some recent things going on with the fire department. I'm not sure what they have been. The volunteer is a call fire department, a volunteer fire department. I
they
mean,
are
you know,
classified as a volunteer call fire department. That's the legal classification of them.
Well,
And that's what we have, that's what they've been since I've been here. And I've been here almost 9 years now. So that's my confusion, and I think it sounds like you're confused a little bit on that. We've never made a decision whether we're going to change anything. It's always
we
been.
did. We, back in January, Phil, we made a decision to start paying them hourly based on the information that we got. And,
Yeah, but-
and there's information that we never had as a board.
No, I think we did. We always, when I say we never made a decision to change anything, I'm not talking about the way that they're paid. I'm talking about the way that, because that was a legal issue, it wasn't a business issue. And the volunteer status remains that, always have been that. The issue that we had was that we were not paying the fire department properly on two things, the pay cycle and the amount that they were being paid. So we had to go through a pretty lengthy process to get that fixed, and we did get that fixed. But at no point did we ever just make a decision or think about, at least and the meetings I've been to, and I wasn't chair at the time, that we wanted to make them considered employees with all the rights and benefits as employees of the town, because that would have huge ramifications on budget issues for us. So, again, I understand. I just want you to understand my perspective. And if anyone else has any comments that were part of those conversations, please chime in. So let's just talk about that first. Stu or Dave, you guys am I crazy in my thought process here? Or am I missing something?
I've been racking my brain to try to figure out, what we actually said, because this has been going on for a while. I mean, this was discussed even as a personnel committee, when we had a personnel committee.
Like
And
4
I'll go,
years
and, I'm disappointed that committee was dissolved in the first place. Because I think you get 3 different opinions, and you get actual body that comes out with an actual opinion, rather than multiple discussions amongst us, and then, Mike, putting this quote in a letter. I don't remember ever changing the status of their title. In other words, from volunteer to full-time employee or part-time employee, whatever
We never
whatever that
did.
was, except for the fire chief himself, because he had a contract and he was considered a full-time employee, right?
Didn't we have an
So if I'm wrong,
executive
chime in.
session about
But
the hours?
we never really wanted to change the classification. And again, I don't
And
know
we
if this
never
is
did, Dave.
well, I know that. And I don't know if this is discussion for open session, because we discuss these things in this. I don't remember ever saying that we've changed what they were. We did change the way we pay them so that we weren't in violation of any federal laws or state laws in the way they were compensated.
Right.
But I don't remember a job description change, voted.
There
I don't-
was
so-
not a job description
Right.
change.
Right. So let me get
What
to
did change was the hourly rate.
right. So let me
And
get
we
to
had
my
2 hourly
point.
rates, and it was done in an executive session, and I think you were in Florida.
Yeah. Again, I
I
get.
did attend that by phone.
Right.
Oh, that's the one you attended by phone?
I did
Okay.
attend that by phone.
Okay.
I looked at.
I mean, there's no specific minutes from the executive session, but like I said, this thing has been kicking around for such a long time. I don't remember ever changing their status of to get full-time benefits and
Never
all that
did.
kind of stuff. So a couple of things. I'm disappointed that this has come to this stage. I think this is something that could have been worked out between the chair and the individual member and Mike. So let me just say that. Secondly is, I'm concerned now that we as a board, although one member has done it, has reached out to the fire department union representatives. When we're in the middle of a negotiation or non-negotiation, they're in the middle of organizing. Have we violated any federal laws on interfering with their ability to now organize as a group? I'm concerned that we were told specifically by Mike in his role as the personnel administrator and legal counsel to stay out of it. Let them organize and let them do their thing and let them come to us with their request on how they want to organize and what, whatever the ask was. And we were to stay out of it until we
Can
were
I ask
formally.
when we were told that?
We were told that in executive session with the lawyer, when the lawyer was here. That I remember, because we were told to stay out of it.
We had an executive session about them going to collective bargaining.
From what I
After
understand,
they've gone to
yes.
collective bargaining, we had an executive session with an attorney
I
here.
believe so. No, not an executive.
No, but I remember,
session.
again,
I remember there was
it's
an
fuzzy
email
to
that
me,
went
but
out
I
from Mike
remember
that
we,
said, "Look, this is
when it
this
was
is
told, we were
collective
told to
bargaining.
stay,
out of it."
let them organize and stay out of it until we get the request of what they wanted. That's their right. I'm just asking, have we violated anything, Mike, by reaching out? It's my concern.
Not that I'm aware of at this time.
Well, that's
I
all right.
asked legal counsel if there, we did bring to the attention of the union, that a union member was having ex parte conversations with the member of the selectmen, and we left it at that. It's not best practice, at the very least, to have outside conversations. I did ask if there's any violations in the legal counsel said, we don't want to start off on that foot in negotiations. There may or may not be, but he said he just had a conversation with the union and let them know that we weren't happy with them having ex parte communications.
Again,
Remember,
there was a
I
executive.
reached out to them in
Gary, I have the floor
response
here.
to
Let me
this-
just, let me just finish my thought, because
Okay.
it's been a long day as it is. Again, I don't know if it was an executive session or not. I can't remember totally, and I'm being totally honest here, that we were told to stay out of it until we got the actual ask. Let them do their thing, let them come to us, and then we'll negotiate. That's what I remember. Maybe I'm crazy,
No,
but that's what I
No,
remember.
Dave, you're absolutely right, and that was the reason why I didn't ask our board to respond to the letter from the union. And, because I can understand that, you know, at this point right now, they wrote a letter to the Board of Selectmen with their displeasure on a number of things, and our personnel director and town administrator took the liberty of going to our town council and having a very legalese type of response back to the union, and keeping us out of it for the spirit of the negotiations that will be coming up. So that's why I did not want to have a response made on our behalf. And I thought the letter was enough to nip it in the bud right then and there.
Again, that's
So,
my
and I would
question.
say, look, when you're chair, Gary, it's a little different as a chair. There are certain liberties that a chair gets, there's certain liberties of communication that I get, and there's certain time frames that I've got to get things done, or any chair has to get things done. You all got a copy of the letter that was sent out, and you got it pretty immediately after I got it and I emailed it. If one of your issues is the timeliness of, is part of the issue the timeliness?
You're on
Is
the
it-
wrong subject. The letter is not, the letter, and that is not. The letter is communications that got passed back to me that I believe I as a Board of Selectmen member should have had, okay? And I did not have anything. When we make decisions as a board, we should have information in front of us. And there was information there that I feel we should have had so that we could have collectively, as a board, made a decision. And when I am told that the chair can make some of these decisions for the board, I disagree with that. And that's what I am in disagreement about. Where does that, granted there are times, and I'm not gonna take that away from you. There are times that you have to, and you can. Some of them are spelled out, I think, very specifically. You probably like what do we call it when there's an emergency? You can declare a state of emergency. I think you can do that on yourself. I don't think we as a board need to meet to do that. But if there's just random, you made a statement when I was objecting to the procedure of the interviews. And at the end of it, after the interviews, I was talking about how I felt there was only one candidate. And you there at that said, well, Gary, as a board, we can step out and change procedure if we have to. And I agree with that, but that's not what happened. I questioned you on that night. I said, that's not what happened. You, as chair, made that decision for the board. And it's those types of moves that I disagree with. I think that's, if you are doing that.
Okay, so, it's Thursday, and one candidate has withdrawn. We have two candidates. We have two candidates coming in. We lost one candidate because of the timing, that we weren't going fast enough. And maybe there's a number of other factors. So again, as chair, there are decisions that you've got to make very quickly on behalf of the board. And any chair, if you did this, you would have the right to say that, to make that decision. Based on that decision, I sent out an email to everyone so they understood. Now granted, you're not going to get that communication until you come in and get your, your stuff from your box upstairs, because it's in hard copy. But again, the chair, don't think I'm overstepping my bounds. And I don't think any chair would be overstepping their bounds to make a decision like that when part of the process is interrupted and we've got to make a change on the fly. So I'm just, I don't want to defend what I did, but it was, in my eyes, it was the right decision to make. The bigger issue, Gary, I'm not sure I'm getting the bigger issue. I just want to make sure I'm clear. Is it that you want to be part of everything? I mean, every conversation?
I certainly.
Because
Okay,
I'm not. We have a personnel.
I feel that we don't get enough information to make the good decisions. When I see a decision from an attorney stating that yes, we could have not been breaking the law by classifying them as volunteers, and I'd never seen that. And we had to make a decision, okay, based on that. And then when I question that, I'm told, when did we call them volunteers? I'm told, well, the chair decided that.
Well, that's not the right answer, and
That's
and
not correct.
The answer to that is that they've always been volunteers. That's why. If you thought that, I get it. We didn't
If
make
that
any
had been
decision.
the answer, it would have been better.
Yes, and if that's where I just so I'm trying to clear this.
We're not, I think where we need to go is, and I don't know if we're gonna get there tonight, cause it seems like we wanna be more argumentative, which is what and I'm part of this board, and I can be just as argumentative, we all know. But, I mean, we need to get to what I need for resolution. Now, if you would like me to sort of go over that tonight, or would you like to just sit down, you and I, and talk about it? But I would prefer to do it more openly, because that's part of what the complaint is. But
Well-
if you feel that we need to work together to try to get there, and then all of this might not be hashed out in the public in such an argumentative way, perhaps.
It's not
we could
arguing.
get there.
Yeah, listen, we can agree to disagree, and I think we're being respectful to each
Yeah,
other.
and
I know
I
we
tried
get a
to
little
do this
passionate.
what I felt was
And you did. You
respectfully
certainly
to
did.
come to what I saw as a way to come to a solution, to get better communications, what I
I know,
did.
but you gotta
Could I-
understand, from a chairman of the board who gets an open meeting law violation sent, packet sent to me that's going to the Attorney General, that's a very serious offense. And as the chair,
Agreed.
I'm liable for that, right? I'm running this board. So you have to understand my position. I'm very offended that we couldn't have a discussion prior. I'm respectful of your situation that you would like to get resolved. I don't want to do this behind closed doors, because I'm leaving in 6 months, and I want to make sure that whoever chairs this next is going to have either the same views
Well,
or,
the res-
or different
The
views.
resolutions would certainly have to come
Let's-
out, okay? That's what I'm saying, but if you wanna,
Well, let's do this. I mean, if you have a few recommendations for us to consider, why don't you go over those, and we can ponder them, and then at our next meeting, we can come up and give you our opinions, and everyone have a chance to comment on what you're trying to resolve here.
let me highlight first one of the things I'm looking for, okay? And, this is to correspondence in the handbook for the selectmen. The chair should be trusted to sort the important from the trivial. Agreed. Many items can be put into a file for board members to pursue at their convenience. Correspondence need to be read at meetings. An alternative practice is to summarize the correspondence. Also, every letter to the board need not be acknowledged, and I agree with that. And we talked about that before, and Mike had talked about putting them into a file. Okay? Now, on the other hand, they also go on to say, and this is what might have helped me feeling that I might have more information, and this is now going to outgoing correspondence. One way to make sure this authority is not abused is to keep files, copies of all outgoing correspondence in a folder or notebook that can be reviewed by selectmen at their meeting. I'm not saying it needs to be done at the meetings, but if it could be, these two types of files could be kept downstairs so that when we come in to see the warrant, we could perhaps better have an idea of what's going on. It's, you know, earlier tonight we had a gentleman in here, and I know he talked how highly about the board and everything else. Been going on for 2 years. He's been in here working. We as a board, I'm completely unaware of it. We've had grievances going on that, and another point, I was talking to Chief Cudmore about a personal item, and it just came up about something, and he said, you know, he was very surprised that when we had a meeting about and I suppose I gotta know, it was executive, but now I guess it would be out there, that this had been going on internally for 2 years. It was the first time I'd heard about it. I don't see that as right. We used to get, you know, K&P used to come in here twice a year when I first came on this board and go over us any legal problems. Now, I've questioned this, and as Mike has said, well, that wasn't to do with K&P, that we're doing with Maya. But there's nothing to say that we shouldn't have had some correspondence or some briefing on that as a board. Now, if we'd have had this in place, okay, the email from the KMP that's in this packet that I gave you, talking about the volunteer status and how we wouldn't have been breaking the law, I would have had that if we'd have had something of this sort in place.
Can I jump in? This was emailed to everybody, Gary. The fact that you refused to get on friggin' email in 2016 is a problem.
All right.
Get
I mean,
nasty.
Gary, I'm not getting nasty, but all that stuff that you're complaining about was sent out to the Board of Selectmen on email. And I just...
Show me on it where it was sent out to the board.
It was all sent out,
What I was
Gary.
reading was sent to the fire chief, not the board.
Well, Gary, I mean,
Okay?
I have
Don't-
emails. I mean,
Don't
it's-
blame it on that
I'm
scoop.
not.
I
I'm
had,
not.
man,
I'm
man
just
of fact-
frustrated because it's like you choose not to have email, and most of all of this
Back
was
up.
on email
Back
to
up.
every one of these board
I
members.
believe I may have had email at that time. I
Maybe.
had email for 3 years, okay? I had email for 3 years, and I had still not seen this stuff. So don't take that route, and please don't get that excited. We're trying to come to resolution.
I understand, but
Let's have a measure of decorum.
the
here.
the KMP response was put out to all the
Now
board
listen.
members.
Number two, I think to get to better decision-making as a board, I mean, this is again in the Selectmen's Handbook. When it comes to making decisions, selectmen should always rely upon the advice of competent professionals such as a town manager or administrator, human resource staff, legal counsel. These issues are complex and there are almost always significant ramifications for these decisions, particularly in terms of cost to the town. Okay? Now, if I'd have seen this email that we're talking about from legal counsel, it would have helped me in making the decision that I made in January dealing with the fire department. So that's where I'm going to. And what I stated earlier, if we had a better communication of what's coming in and what's coming out representing this board, I believe that I'd be able to make better decisions. Now, perhaps some feel that only the chair should get this stuff, but I disagree.
So you gentlemen, the rest of the board, you get my emails, right? I'm pretty regular on my emails, so any correspondence that anything I send out to anybody, I'm emailing them out. I can't help it that you're not on email.
I used to get hard copies when I first started on the board, okay, I would get hard copies of all of that.
Excuse myself for a minute.
And we can go back to that. That can be a resolution, okay? But don't blame it on the fact that Gary.
No, I'm just saying, I am communicating, you're not getting it. The rest of the board is getting all of the communications. And so, we've gotta have a solution to help you get that information faster.
Agreed.
But I just wanna make it clear, I am sending out everything, every email I send out that has to do with a board opinion, or any information on behalf of the board, or any correspondence, any copy, I absolutely send out these emails, and these gentlemen can attest to that.
And I believe that I probably get most of them.
Okay.
So I don't think that that's what I'm
I
having
know,
the
this was
problem
not,
with.
all these other emails were
What
not
I'm
during my
having a
tenure, so
problem
I
with
can't
it is,
answer for
as
that.
it says, we need the advice of all of these people. And if there's legal advice out there that I am not receiving, and it's got nothing to do, I don't believe, with email, because I'm not sure the rest of the board got it, okay?
Okay, so the rest of the, so on that particular case, Gary, the rest of the board, we were not under any auspices that we were going to change the classification at all, in any discussion. We needed to fix the pay scale and the pay rate. The classification was never brought up for a decision to change. And hence, the defensive position of the town on these emails was basically to clarify the reason why they've always been volunteers. It wasn't because we were thinking about changing them. They were requesting to be considered to be employees. We were never considering that. That was never brought up in any of our conversations. So we're gonna agree to disagree on that, okay? So let's do this. I hear your recommendations. One
I'm not
is,
done, but yeah,
so far, I just want to sum up so I remember these, all right? One is to create some sort of an inbox for particular types of emails and for hard copies on file in that. And the second is to get you, I mean, it's not really getting you the information, because the information's, I mean, getting the information out to board members, it's getting you the information. So I need to, and I normally do copy Mike and or Janet on all my emails I send out to the board as well.
And I believe that I get them,
Okay. So you are getting them.
yes.
And
So
then
what's
your
the-
last issue is just on the content of what you want to be notified on, and it sounds like such as the letter that came from the legal, our attorney, as opposed to us having a chance to reply first.
I don't know that that letter went, that email got passed perhaps to chair. And I feel that as a board, to make a decision, we should have had that.
So my response, okay, I got you on that.
But you see, you're hanging up on here, you're hanging up on the problem, I'm trying to work on the solution.
Well, I need to understand and backtrack what is the cause of the problem, so your solutions make sense to me.
Well, one of the things that I said was, why don't we have, I guess what I would call it anymore, selectmen briefings? I mean, if
Listen, I am all
from
game for that. If you guys,
KMP used to come twice a year to us.
yeah,
Not
if-
happening anymore. Now, Mike will say that we've got no legal matters, but I do remember one, and I brought up the Tolman one, and you told me, well, that got dropped. But we didn't even get told that got dropped. We didn't get told what it might have cost us to go forward with it.
Well, you're right. I
And-
don't
and to
remember
that-
if the last time, we've met with our attorney on particular issues and not gotten an update on where we are with any other particular issues. Mike, can you bring that to your attention so you can schedule some time with us,
Can,
with our attorney?
can we
Yes.
have general briefings of some type?
From council or other areas as
On
well?
other areas, let's say if we have counsel that is also working on, what would I call them, Mike, grievance procedures or lawsuits, but they may not be being handled by KMP because they're being handled by Maya, shouldn't we still be briefed on these occasionally as to that you've got this? This is where we think we're going? It seems like what happens now,
Yep.
the briefing we get is the night that we've got to make the decision. I said, well, gee, this has been going on for a couple of years, never heard of it. Not right.
I don't disagree with that. I mean,
Okay.
I
that's-
completely agree with
So that's
you.
one of the ways I'm looking for a solution.
That's an easy one.
Can I offer a suggestion to,
Yeah.
there's a point where you draw the line and you don't want to be micromanaging. And I just want to caution everybody about sticking our nose in the day-to-day operational issues of the town. Yes, we should be briefed, but there's a point in time when we should be briefed. I don't want to, we shouldn't have to get an email about Mike explaining the handbook to an employee. And that's how I take some of these emails, was Mike was explaining to the fire department, items in the handbook. We should be, overseers, but we shouldn't be micromanagers, and I just caution the board on that particular issue.
And I was very cautious, David, on where I went with that, I will tell you. And yes, that evidently was resolved, and so I said, then why do I have it?
Right.
Okay, it
Right.
was resolved.
Right. Well, I'm using the example that you used tonight about this particular issue. This isn't even in our purview. We were gracious enough to listen. This is a building department, planning board, health department issue. It's out of our purview. There's nothing we can do about that particular issue.
No, there is.
To get correspondence for 2 years on this particular issue, to me, again, I think is almost, it's micromanaging. We have boards to handle that particular situation. I think we were gracious enough to understand that there's a problem, but I don't think we needed to be in it from the beginning.
So
Again, that's to me is almost micromanaging these other boards and employees. So I just want to be cautious. I'm just caution you on that particular issue because, in my own life, I answer to a volunteer board, and I certainly don't want to be micromanaged, and I don't think Mike or any of the other staff want to be micromanaged. That's all I'm cautioning you on. Just be careful about what you wish for.
All right, are there any more,
Well, I have
suggested
4 things
solutions?
understanding, and I guess the fourth is we need a clearer understanding of just, you know, that the town administrator and sitting chair of the board do not represent this board on a decision, as a decision-making body. Because that is sort of what I read out of that email.
which email?
The one to the fire chief stating that the perception of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee, that the fire department is basically a volunteer department. Mike, when I questioned you about that, will you disagree that you told me that you sat down with the chair and that the chair spoke for the committee on that, for the board? You may not remember, but I wrote it down in my notes. I can tell you the date that we talked.
Well, the real answer to that question should be that it's never come up as a conversation that we had any inclination to make that change.
So maybe perhaps that was a wrong answer, but that answer to me perceives that there's a feeling there that can happen. And I think we need a better understanding and some standard operating procedures on perhaps when that happens. I mean, we as a board, we will many times take a vote and say, okay, we'll let the chair represent us on this or sign this. We do that. Well, if we do that as a board for some things, why do we do it for some things and perhaps not most all things? That's what I'm getting to.
No, I'm telling you, there's particular stuff that has to happen. When there's time issues, we don't have that luxury.
Agreed.
When there's, specific correspondence that have pertained to the union, some of those conversations I prefer to just send to legal and let legal make a response. That way there, I'm not putting the town at risk at anything. And I don't want to put you guys at risk either. We certainly want to bring it up in a conversation that we got a correspondence and we replied to it. That's what we did on the agenda. There's no, look, whether you agree or disagree with the letter, that's not the point. They made a statement, we responded to the letter. That's it.
The problem isn't the letter. That's what I'm saying. The problem is what came to me, what went out of the Board of Selectmen's office as representing the Board of Selectmen, and I don't believe it was. And the problem is that
It was the town council representing the Board of Selectmen, though. Not
in
any
order to
individual.
make decisions, we need the most information we can get. At least that's my feeling. Now you may be, and David, I'm not trying to micromanage, but
I'm just cautioning. I didn't say you were. I'm just cautioning,
agreed.
so.
But I mean, I need the information to make the decisions. I feel much better about the decisions I make going forward if I have the information. And I made a decision that I think I would have voted completely different on if I'd have had more information.
Okay.
Can I make a point here? Number one, my first point, Gary, is get on email so you get these communications in a timely manner.
Absolutely not.
Then that's your issue. That's your issue to resolve, not our issue.
No.
If you are included on email and it's email that's out to everybody on this board, you're the one that's doing something different, okay?
You can point your finger
And you're the one that's
raise your
saying,
voice
hey,
if you want.
I'm not getting the information.
But that's
You're
not
getting the
Decorum,
information.
please.
You just choose not to receive the information.
Tone it
Okay,
down.
okay? But number two, more importantly, I agree with you on getting information, and I agree with you on being able, I'm just, I agree with you about getting information, and I think there are certain things that can happen. What I would suggest is, it's really upon the individual on the board to be able to go talk to town administrator, talk to the chairman of the board, talk to other departments, and you'll hear what's going on. I agree, a briefing would be nice if there's certainly anything going on legal that we see sort of in a forecast, like a legal forecast type thing, or legal
Well, thank you.
ops type thing. I totally agree with you on that. But I'm just frustrated because the information that is all that you're concerned about in this was all communicated to everybody on this board on email.
So look, we also.
That's all I'm saying. And I
I
do
think you're
agree with
wrong.
some of your points.
I think you're wrong on that.
Like I said, I like that idea of a legal, what's coming down the pike, if there's anything.
Yeah,
coming
we've
down the
we've
pike.
had
basically,
those.
You know, I think we could improve upon that, so.
It's probably been a year and a half since we've had a meeting with legal for that.
Well, I
Okay,
mean,
I wanna,
I think
I
the
wanna
town
end this
administrator can bring
conversation
that up,
because
you
it's
know?
getting late. Gary, you've presented to us, your thoughts on maybe some better ways to communicate. I will, and I think all of us, if you think through these, will you send a note to Mike, a little bit with further explanation of what
I
you're
will
looking
certainly
for?
do that.
I'll have Mike send it out to us, and at our next meeting, we can discuss it. I mean,
certainly wanna come to resolution on this, I do.
yeah, I just don't, I don't see this as a trend. I see this as a one particular issue more than anything, and and I don't wanna make one.
I'd be happy to hear that.
And I don't, yeah, and I'm trying, you know, this whole Facebook thing and communication, I'm trying to make sure that we all have an opportunity to discuss what our communications policy is. It's never gonna be perfect in anything, I can guarantee you that. It's always a work in progress. All right, let's move on.
When this started, just let, you know, I went into Mike, sometime last month, and I said, Mike, I know on my end, I gotta get better. And he said, well, what do you mean by that? I said, I've been in, I sometimes come in and say, Mike, what about this? And I personally don't follow up on it, and so now I will be following up better with, there's some things that we've been working on.
So,
And
Gary,
think
and
that we will-
communication
no,
is
I'm not
it's
saying
a
that.
two-way
that-
street, though.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's a
I
two-way
am,
street,
I am
though.
also
I have
guilty,
not-
is what I'm trying to say, okay?
All right, I'll let you say that to yourself, and I don't need to bring it up. All right. I don't have issues with you, that's why I haven't communicated any issues. If you have issues with me, please, anytime, my phone is always on me, and you can,
No, I got
Use
an email,
someone's
when I had, Mike got you an email, I didn't fully agree with what you said, but that's okay, that was your decision, and I didn't question you on that.
all right. What's next? Where's the,
Appointments.
I think you got one more point.
Registrar.
I'll stay out of.
Board of Registrar.
There's two appointments, isn't there?
Okay.
There's 3 people in,
Oh.
4 people in it?
3.
Suzanne Clay,
Oh, we got 3 letters.
Yeah.
that's Council on Aging.
No, there's
got
three
two
more.
more.
I thought there was just
I don't
one.
think you have
Yeah,
Sue's,
that's
I don't think you have Sue's letter
Sue
in the
Daigle.
packet tonight.
Minda
There was,
Sue,
No, I was talking to Council on Aging. There's
Oh,
a
we're not-
Council on Aging appointment, guys, an easy
We
one.
did that.
Did we do it already?
No, we didn't do the
No,
council.
we didn't
No,
do that,
Council on
but-
Aging, I know
Oh,
it.
okay, Sue Clay.
Yeah.
But we have,
Yes.
Okay.
next one up is the,
Well, I was just going to the
and
easy
then
one
the COA.
first.
I've lost my agenda.
So Gary can participate, then he's gonna recuse himself from the other one.
oh, whatever.
COA, that's an easy one.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we appoint to the Council on Aging as an alternate member Susan Clay with a term to expire 6/30/2016.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you.
And then the last one is the registrar's.
And-
Get you in on that.
Thank you.
Oh, you're
There it is, under everything.
Back to my,
You going over this too?
Oh, yeah, if you guys want to, yeah.
Save the registrars for the last. Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, what else is on the
was
wall?
this CPC calendar thing that we were
Oh,
supposed to
okay, Gary, yeah, go ahead. If you want to talk about the CPC calendar.
Just to let you know, at our last meeting, we got this, you know, calendar going forward. As you can see, we have a rather busy schedule. And, but sometimes, not so much here, sometimes on finance, I can remember hearing some about, you get these CPC stuff too late or something. So I went over with Janet today, you know, like, Thursday, April 14th is when we'll have to do the posting of the warrant, I guess. So I gave you this just to sort of make sure that everything goes forward, because as you know, I'm the guy that doesn't like the placeholders. I like to see everything is done as much as we can. But just some further information I got after I talked with Jan earlier today is that what Harry, he's our chair again, we voted that. He usually in January, I guess, moves everything forward, all projects as placeholders to us. And then you can see, where the project recommendations, they were gonna be discussing tomorrow night whether to move that ahead. That would be 2 weeks, move that one meeting ahead. But does anybody see, I know, Mike, you help pull us together for us. How does this look?
Well, this is the first time I've seen it tonight, but I can speak also for the Finance Committee. They've been asking that it be moved up for several years, and this is still a month too late.
Well, the final.
They need to wrap this up by March 30th at the that's even stretching it. The middle of March would be, and the sooner the better. But, going into April is,
Yeah,
this
April
all
9th.
needs to be moved into and done before the end of
April
March.
19th one is coming off. We really don't even do that. That's something that Harry put on there. He said, what that is supposed to be is we go over them when they come back from KMP. We as a board like to go over them. We generally sometimes don't get them back from KMP until the week before the meeting. I think a lot of these things go on more as placeholders. So what I'm telling you is that the project recommendation and amounts of votes may be March 1st, which is a month and a half ahead of when the posting is. The public information, that really doesn't have anything to do with the warrant. So with that scenario, do you see an issue? I mean, we can go over this, but.
Yeah, we're definitely wrapped up in March.
Yeah, I think
Definitely.
it should be.
Earlier in March, the better.
With what that final warrant is basically what comes back to the board. What that April 19th one was what would be coming back from this board to CPC. That's what that would be.
So can I make a suggestion then?
Yes.
So, Gary, I know you're on that board. If you would work with Mike and the chair of the CPC to see if he can tighten the schedule up based on the concerns that we
I
have.
think I just said, I think we've done that. Hopefully we'll be there. Mike said it needs to be wrapped up a month. I said, we're looking at a month and a half ahead. We're looking at March 1st. Or if it's the March 15th date, that's a month before April 14th.
You got March 30th too, by the way. Well, it's a Wednesday, there's 5 Wednesdays in March, so that actually works.
Yeah, I mean, if needed, if we needed to have something extra, we would, so.
Well, I've been trying to get the Finance Committee to be done by April 1. Everything wrapped up. No more discussions after April 1. And we've been unable to do that. A lot of it is the reason because we don't know what
Yeah.
the state's doing
Okay,
to
that's
us.
All right, well, I think,
Just as your representative, I wanted to fill you in and make sure
No, I-
that going forward is
the board
okay.
appreciates it.
Thank you.
All right, I think I pretty much hit everything. We do have a couple things coming up.
Phil? Yeah, Board of Registrar.
Yep. Before I get there, I just want to talk about the fire department union. Mike, so you have a meeting proposed on the 8th.
And I just learned after we spoke that the union can't meet then, so this may slide into November.
Okay, so, all right, then these dates aren't gonna mean anything right now. So anyhow, so Mike is working to have a meeting with the representatives of the union with their representation and our representation from KNP. It's early for them just to set the ground rules and to lay out a process and time and dates. Once we get that established, we'll have an opportunity to sit down in an executive session with them to start the conversation. And we're at the mercy of schedules right now. Okay. All right. Appointments for the Board of Registrars. So what are we trying to do here? We've got a couple of requests.
Two additionals that came in today.
Two additional that came in today. So Susan Daigle and Ms. Minda Fowler.
And Mr. Wolf.
And Mr. Wolf. Do we have a recommendation from the Georgetown Republican Committee, or the Board of Registers, rather?
Town clerk, right?
Yeah, that, to recommend, I mean, they're all, look, this job is very important, but it's not, you know, a ton of hours either. It's some work. I think everyone is well qualified to do the job. It's not, it's not, you know, menial work, but it's, I don't know how to make a determination of who.
It's part of the process is all.
Yeah.
Should we
So
draw
David-
straws?
Go ahead.
No, I say, should we draw straws? Because we have 3 great candidates here, so I don't know.
I mean, look,
You know?
I point them all.
Right.
Well, if they needed 3 Republicans on the committee, we'd have them right here.
I know.
No, it's great to see this many people finally jumping in, so appreciate everybody's
Well,
effort.
Look, I think everyone who's applied is a great candidate for this appointment. If you guys want to make a recommendation this evening and vote on it, I mean, I will. I would prefer to almost get a recommendation from the registrars on who they would like. So that takes the.
We had a time though?
There are no registrars, that's the
We have to
issue.
do it tonight.
We appoint
They don't have a quorum.
Right.
If I may,
clerk.
we need, the Board of Selectmen needs to make a single emergency appointment until the political parties meet and submit the names of 3 people to the selectmen, one of which you would then pick for a permanent member of the.
Did they make a move last week on that?
We have 2 people from the Georgetown Republican Committee. Sue Daigle and Minda Fowler. I've never met, you know, Hank Wolf, so.
But the committee, the Republican Party hasn't they're supposed to hold a meeting and by whatever process they use, submit to the selectmen 3 names.
Well, we have 2.
Well, you've got 3, at least 3 people.
Right, well, we don't know Hank, so
Yeah.
this was the first I knew. We have 2 people from the Georgetown Republican Town Committee that stepped forward. Sue Daigle indicated that she would do it temporarily until a full-time, someone would do it full-time.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, in the interest of fairness, to make an emergency appointment, I would nominate, make the suggestion that we appoint Susan Daigle. She's the first one that applied in an emergency situation until the Republican Town Committee can formally meet and vote 3 candidates for us to consider. That's my motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Because the committee's supposed to vote, right, and bring us the candidates. You guys haven't voted, right, on these candidates. These are individual letters from them.
We did, I don't know, a week or 2 ago.
Oh, you did? Okay, all right, so then
And
then I
this is-
stand
but
corrected.
We met just last
There were
week.
only 2 people out of 11
Right.
that were willing to do
But these
that.
letters are from them as individuals, not from
no,
the
that's
I don't think the
committee.
committee officially voted to
Right.
send any names. I think they just sort of said, oh, great, we got 2. So,
So I mean, just as an emergency, and then you guys can vote them and give us a list, and then we'll go through
I'll
that.
second Sue Daigle. Did we have a second?
Yeah.
We had a second.
I second.
Okay.
I can ask for another motion before we vote for this candidate if we have a.
I mean, and consider multiple people.
But you
This is an appointment.
Yeah, we just appointed her as, well, the suggestion was emergency.
You're not making nominations.
Okay.
Just a question as to procedure, if I may. If the Republican committee doesn't give us 3 names, wouldn't we just say, there's only 1 appointment needed, so wouldn't
Right.
we just say?
The emergency appointment becomes
Until you guys submit.
Until
you guys vote,
until
right?
they do give 3 names.
You're saying they have to give 3 names?
They shall. That's the way the state
Wow.
state law
This
is.
is confusing as heck for me. I can't get a handle on my
At least
own
we
board.
get this committee up and running by adding one, right?
Okay, so we have a motion. Any further discussion?
Yeah, just that the people that are telling us we have to do this don't wanna, the same state board doesn't wanna appoint anything to the council on aging. Gee whiz.
That's a good point.
Okay.
Similar.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Aye, okay. Thank you, Sue Daigle. Thank you
Yes.
for Minda Fowler and Hank Wolf for your consideration. If there's anything else you want to do in town, we have plenty of,
But point of order, Mr.
plenty of
Chairman.
room for
We
you.
still need
Yeah.
I
three
understand,
letter-
I understand.
submitted
3
from
names
those.
from each
I
party.
know, we're not there yet. We're
All
one
right,
step,
okay.
one,
That's all. All right, thanks.
just
Well,
this
I'll
is
just-
step closer.
Just to give them a quorum.
Yes, to make the recommendation,
How many are on the board?
3, isn't it?
There's
2 from each one.
Four.
Right. And so they've got one.
Plus the clerk.
Town clerk, and there's,
No, but I
there's
guess, I
Democrat,
I
there's one
guess,
Republican.
guess what I'm saying is if the Republican committee said we recommend Dick Boucher, who's sitting, we recommend Sue Daigle and Linda Fowler, that would be 3 names? Just trying to figure out procedure going forward for the committee also.
But you can't recommend somebody that's already
It's
there.
already on.
Yeah, so you need a different name. You need 3 names to fill that.
That's all right, I'll just send these to the chair, and they all have indicated they were willing.
There you
And
go.
I'll just have her, I'll ask her.
Then you can go through it again.
I'll ask her if she can write a letter to the town clerk and say, this is from the Georgetown Republican Town Committee, and these 3 people have stepped forward.
Okay.
'Cause you don't need to be a member of the town committee to be appointed. That, and I would say the public, we still need a Democrat.
Okay. We still need a Democrat. This is crazy, to be honest with you. It's probably the easiest positions in town, too.
Really, and it's paid.
I think if I.
Yeah, it's
if
paid,
I-
you're right.
So if I go on it, I have to give up my seat,
I
right?
totally forgot about that.
There you go.
If I go on it, I have
It's
to
a
give
good
up my
job for
seat.
you.
I wouldn't trade this for the world.
Yeah, okay.
All right. So, anyone else have anything before we discuss quickly just our next meetings? Okay. All right. Mike and Janet, would you please put together I used to do with you guys, were really good, and I forgot to ask you, is put a list of action items from our meetings that came up and send them out to everyone. Because I try to look at my notes and while I'm paying attention, and I can't always do a good job. So Monday, October 19th, we have on this agenda, a 6:30 meeting. I think we were going to use that for an executive session for the union, but we're not going to have that meeting, so we're going to keep that at 7 then?
Oh, and we want to talk about the chief contracts?
Yeah, actually, we should probably use it, yeah.
For chief
Yeah,
and
so we're gonna use that,
town
so let's use that, for the 2 contracts that we have in front of us, we gotta start to consider. Okay. So 6:30, Monday, October 19th, and then on Saturday, so that's our next regular scheduled meeting. The executive session at 6:30 and a regular scheduled session at this,
7 o'clock.
at 7 o'clock here. Sorry, a lot of different meetings here. Saturday, October 17th, from 9:30 to 2:30?
Well, I have an update on that. I did finally get a hold of Kim Wells.
Yeah.
And they're not able to, they don't recommend us doing it at that time. And they suggested November 7th, a Saturday,
Okay.
to be the visioning section of the process.
All right, I'm fine with that. I need some time. We got a lot of things going on here. So, November 7th then, Saturday, and we'll still schedule from 9:30 to 2:30?
It may be extended because they're going to try to do a little more and not have to have additional meetings.
Okay, so I'm gonna do this. I wanna work with you, as I said, to have a conversation to get a specific agenda. No one is gonna stay from 9:30 to 3:30 except for us. So if there's particular parts that make sense for people in the community, for people in the departments, we'll make it clear when they should be arriving for those particular parts. Okay.
So that's moved, right?
So that's moved. October 17th is now November 7th. Do we need to check with the school, it's available and all that fun stuff still, right? Okay, so before I start communicating that, will you double check tomorrow and let me know? That'd be great. We have a special town meeting Monday, November 2nd at 7 o'clock. Do we need to post a selectmen's meeting before that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll post it November 2nd at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
All right, guys?
Yep.
6 o'clock, November 2nd, right, an hour before special town meeting, at the high school. And then on Monday, November 9th is the state of the town. Actually, I like that now better. I like having this visioning right before the state of the town because it will be fresh on our mind too.
And right after town meeting,
Yeah.
because we will have at least 100 people there, we can cajole into attending Saturday.
Meeting?
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
Be good. It's good timing, actually.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And Janet? And have a good evening. All right. I'm gonna sign these. Guys, there's